Okay. Okay. Right. Zoom. Share screen. Okay. Okay. I think we're ready to start.
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth day of GCFI73. Thanks to all of you that have joined, and thank you for being patient. Today, we're going to have two thematic keynotes, as well as our Fisheries Forum. Just some housekeeping for you. At the bottom of your panel, you can choose which language you wish to listen to. There's a little world sign, and that will allow you to listen in English or Spanish. We also have a question and answer box where you can direct your questions, and after each presentation, we will be having a live question and answer session with our keynote speakers. And please also feel free to use the chat and chat with other panelists. So to start things off, we're going to start with Dr. Cesar Toro to deliver his keynote address. Dr. Toro is the head of the subcommission for the Caribbean and adjacent regions, IO-Carib, of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, based in Cartagena, Colombia. From IO-Carib, he has promoted the development of marine and ocean sciences and technology in the states of the region through the strengthening of institutional capacity, coordination of intergovernmental group and networks of scientists and experts. Dr. Toro is a physical oceanographer with an MSc in oceanography and a PhD from the University of Quebec, Canada, in physical oceanography. Dr. Toro is a specialist in dynamical oceanography and climate change adaptation and mitigation, sustainable development, and ocean governance and policy. So we are truly honored to have Dr. Toro here today. Let's get started. One second. There we go.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having invited me to this 73rd Annual Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute Conference. Today, I would like to share with you the development of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development 2021-2030, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all, the ocean we need for the future we want. The UN General Assembly proclaimed in December 6, 2017, the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development 2021-2030. The IOC, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, prepared a decade implementation plan to be accepted by the United Nations General Assembly next month, December 2020. And a call to action to launch transformative science and post-COVID-19 initiatives. The vision of the Decade of Ocean Science is the science we need for the ocean we want. And its mission is to generate and use knowledge for the transformational actions needed to achieve a healthy, safe, and resilient ocean for sustainable development by 2030 and beyond. And the decade objective is to increase transformative ocean knowledge capacity and capability globally, and to expand innovate, and integrate ocean knowledge systems globally, to understand and predict the whole ocean system and its components path, and to develop integrated assessment and decision support system and other transformational tools and processes. The decade will enable action at all levels, provide a responsive global pathway for development, and support ocean science that is fit for purpose. Will harness, stimulate, and coordinate interdisciplinary efforts at all levels in order to support delivery of the information, action, and solutions needed to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and beyond. For the decade, the notion of transformation is central. We would like to move from where we are to where we would like to be. And as you know, science and ocean science in general has been largely competent for problem diagnostic. However, what we need is science providing solutions and motivated action. We have as well major knowledge gaps, weak ocean literacy. We would like to have ocean literate and well-informed decisions. We have access to observing system for climate and emerging data service. And we would like to have ocean data and information system for past, present, and future. So we would like to understand the entire timeline of the processes in the ocean. As well, one of the critical elements is that the funding for ocean science the funding base is mostly in research mode. So we need to achieve a clear value chain leading to resourcing and commitment. And also, presently, there is a hugely uneven capacity, especially in developing countries and small island developing states. So what we like to achieve, we would like to be, is that capacity development and transfer of technology is accomplished and no one is left behind. So the decade, both in terms of action and outcomes, needs to move beyond business as usual. So what we like to achieve using the decade as a framework is to moving from business as usual to a true revolution in ocean science. So as we said, the transformative nature of the decade will promote and facilitate ocean science. An ocean science that uses the 2030 Agenda as a central framework to identify and address the most pressing societal questions. Also, the decade will facilitate ocean science that spans across disciplines and actively integrates natural and social sciences disciplines. This is a critical element if we are really willing to achieve that true revolution in ocean science. As well, strives for generational, gender, and geographic diversity and inclusion in all its manifestations. And also is co-design and co-deliver in a multi-stakeholder environment to be relevant and responsive across the entire value chain. So the Ocean Decade challenges describe the most immediate and pressing priorities for the decade. Among them, we can see a number of those challenges. And among them, we have the first of the challenges, one of the challenges is to understand and map land and sea-based sources of pollutants and contaminants. We need to understand the effects of multiple stresses on ocean ecosystems and develop solutions to protect, monitor, manage, and restore ecosystems and their biodiversity. And also, we will need to generate knowledge and support innovation and develop solutions to optimize the role of the ocean to contribute to the sustainable feeding the world's populations. And as well, we need to generate knowledge to contribute to equitable and sustainable development of the ocean economy. And we need to enhance the challenges to enhance understanding of the ocean climate nexus and use this understanding to generate solutions to mitigate, adapt, and build resilience to the effects of climate change. As well, we need to expand multi-hazard warning systems, including all biological, geophysical, and weather and climate-related ocean hazards. And we need to ensure a sustainable ocean observing system. We need to develop a comprehensive digital representation of the ocean, including a dynamic ocean map through multi-stakeholder collaboration. We need to as well ensure comprehensive capacity development and equitable access to data, information, knowledge, and technology. And we need to ensure that the multiple value of the ocean for human well-being, culture, and sustainable development are recognized and widely understood and identify and overcome barriers to the behavior change that is required for a step change in humanity's relationship with the ocean. The Ocean Decade goals are several societal outcomes that we are including. First of all, is a clean ocean where sources of pollution are identified and reduced or removed. A healthy and resilient ocean where marine ecosystems are understood, protected, restored, and managed. As well, a productive ocean that is supporting sustainable food supply and a sustainable ocean economy. A predicted ocean. Society understands and can respond to changing ocean conditions. We need to achieve as well a safe ocean where life and livelihoods are protected from ocean-related hazards. Also, an accessible ocean. It is necessary to achieve an open and equitable access to data, information and technology and innovation. Of course, this is also needed in order to ensure that we will have the necessary capacity across the entire group of stakeholders. And all those societal outcomes and goals are, even though we might achieve those during the decade, or come closer to that, but the real transformation will happen if we reach as a societal outcomes an inspiring and engaging ocean, where society understands and values the diverse roles and different value systems of the ocean in relation to the human well-being and sustainable development. This is the key element, the transformation, understanding of the ocean for all of us as human beings. So the process so far, I summarize the different activities and actions that were taken since the declaration of the decade by the United Nations General Assembly in 2017. So there was a global planning meeting in May 2019 with more than 200 participants. Very importantly, the process has been responded to a regional planning workshops, because even though the framework is to be achieved globally, the best way to achieving that is through the different regions, where in this particular region where we are now, in the Western Tropical Atlantic, the Gulf and Caribbean Sea, we have a very particular elements, and is different from other regions of the ocean. So it was organized more than 11 regional planning workshops. And also very importantly, for the intergenerational transformation, the Early Careers Ocean Professionals Informal Working Group was created. And there were 3 meetings of the EU Oceans Contact Group. We have as well a series of ocean literacy and UN agency data management thematic meetings. We have a very important element that was established, that this is the executive planning group of the ocean. That is a group of experts who are leading the development and the vision and constructing this vision and the implementation plan as well. So we have a good number of virtual sessions presenting zero draft of implementation. And the implementation plans was peer review of the zero draft. And then this implementation draft was sent to member states and partners, more than 450. And we received, or it was received, more than 220 written submissions, including 42 from member states. All this process has resulted in the preparation of the version 1.0 of the draft implementation plan. The structure of the or the implementation plan is structured in such a way that has 3 parts. The part 1 provides the rationale, vision, mission, and desired outcomes of the decade. Part 2 presents the decade action framework, and part 3 presents the implementation mechanism. And we should stress that this implementation plan is a dynamic living document that will evolve over the decade. Whatever we are doing today is going, depending how we are going to evolve the implementation plan as well. We be adapted in order to include those new achievements and challenges that we are going to have ahead. And more importantly, the implementation plans provide a strategic framework for the decade implementation. The decade action framework is connected, as we can see here. The 2030 agenda and regional and global policy and frameworks are connected to the decade outcomes. And as you might recall from the previous slides, we have these 7 outcomes, and what is our vision is to the ocean we want. So we have a series of ocean decade challenges that are, as we described, they are the most immediate and pressing needs of the decade. As well as the implementation plan, the challenges may evolve throughout the decade, and new challenges will be added. And each challenge contributes to one or more decade outcomes. And the decade objectives that we saw, there are the steps in the process from the ocean we have to the ocean we want. And in order to implement and make reality these and achieve those objectives and contribute to the solving the challenges and reaching those societal outcomes, there is a series of decade actions that are tangible initiatives and endeavors that will be implemented by the wide range of decade stakeholders to fulfill the objectives and thus, and of course, achieve the challenges. So how we are going to do this? So we have a series of a decade action hierarchy. where we have a tangible initiative that will be implemented by a wide range of decade stakeholders. The first of them is a decade program. We have a decade project possibility, as well as a decade activity and a decade contribution. The decade program could be global or regional in scale, will fulfill one or more of the decade objectives, and usually is a long-term, multi-year, interdisciplinary, and typically multinational, and includes components, projects, and enabling activities. A decade project is a discrete and focused undertaking of a shorter duration and will typically contribute to an identified decade program. And then a decade activity is a component in support of an outcome objective program or project, and typically is a one-off standalone activity and can form part of the program or project or can be related directly to the decade objective. Referring to the decade contribution in this hierarchy is a decade contribution is that one that supports the decade through provision of necessary resources that can be either for costs related to the implementation of the decade action or for coordination costs. So the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO made a call for a large-scale, multi-country, transformative decade programs and large-scale contribution to the coordination costs of the ocean decade. So call for programs and contributions is due January 15, 2021. Another major event that will seal the process of the UN decade will be the kickoff event that is programmed in Berlin, Germany next year, in May next year. Hopefully, at that moment, the COVID-19 situation may allow the kickoff event in Berlin, Germany next May. So I would like to share with you an overview of call for decade actions. So as mentioned, that call for actions for two types of large-scale decade actions. One is a global or a major regional program, or second, contribution including support to central or decentralized coordination functions. This call, most of you have received the copy of the call, and was open less than 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, in 15 October 2020, and is due to 15 January 2021, as I mentioned, with decisions that will be in the first quarter of 2021. There is no geographical thematic restriction. It is suite of interrelated documentation to support. There is a suite of interrelated documentation to support call for decade actions that you can find in the UN Decade website. And the call will be supported by a diverse range of communication actions. And the UN entity registration process will be open in parallel. So the stakeholder engagement. There is establishment of a global stakeholder forum that is a dedicated online exchange platform and regional and international conference series. We have that the stakeholder engagement could be channeled through existing or new structure to coordinate actors at the national level, inclusive the platform for the co-design and co-delivery of actions, and should facilitate access to benefits such as data, product science, policy advice, or capacity development. Uh, you, we might have as well, we have as well the alliances for ocean decade alliances and regional or sectoral or thematic or stakeholder platform and a decade implementing partner. There are stakeholder institutions, including research, NGOs, universities, that are committed to the revision and mission of the decade and that are making significant and sustainable efforts to implement decade actions. What we can take from here is that there is no one type of stakeholder that is more important than other. All of us, we are important. And if we are really to achieve those societal outcomes, there is a need for a coordinated actions among all of us, all the coordinated action among all the stakeholders. And the regional as well as the national components, they are quite critical if we are really willing to change the behavior. And whatever we do at the regional level or sectoral or thematic or globally, unless it's translated into the national policies as well as is benefited at the national level, things will be really difficult to achieve unless we do that. So national components are extremely important in the for the entire stakeholder engagement. So next step and key stall milestones. In September to December, this is what we are right now ending. We are already in November. So only there are left a few weeks from this year. Through this period, September, December, there is a negotiation of the omnibus resolution by the United Nations General Assembly, including the implementation plan. From the 15th of October to the 15th of January, it was the launch of the first call for action for the decade programs and contributions that we just described. And the 1st of January, 2020, at 00 hours, the decade starts. So happy New Year and happy decade starting. From January to July 2021, there is a progressive rollout of the stakeholder engagement mechanism. And between March and April 2021, decisions on first group of endorsed decade actions, program and contributions will be released. And in May 2021, as I mentioned, it will be the first International Ocean Decade Conference in Berlin. And in 2021, the date to be confirmed will be the 2021 UN Ocean Conference that is planned to be held in Lisbon, Portugal. So, as mentioned, first call for action, October 15, 2020 was released. So I will encourage all of you, all our partners who are listening to this and participating in this conference, to sign up on www.oceandecade.org to be in the mailing list for updates, and also as well as start thinking how you can organize your network and a group of institutions and a strong stakeholder and institutional network to develop your own program, project, activity. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for listening. And I also would like to, again, thank the organizers for this great opportunity. And you can see below the address of our websites. So please, if you have any other questions, please, I invite you to visit them. And I will be really happy to answer to your questions and comments. I will appreciate your comments, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Toro. I would like to invite you to enable your camera. And I'd also like to invite Dr. Alejandro Acosta to, you'll be the moderator for this question and answer session. So please enter your questions within the Q&A box.
Good morning, everybody. Cesar, thank you for your presentation of this extremely important strategy for the region. We should all be able to take advantage of this. That's one of the goals of this year GCFI, to present strategies that will bring future for the region and will really enhance the resources. There are two questions in this moment, but let me read it to you. One of the questions was, if there is a version of the Spanish webpage for the Ocean Decade.
No, not right now. Most of the materials are in English and the website is in English. However, there is, if you visit the Decade website, you will find also materials in English and in other and in Spanish and in other languages. But the website still is only in English.
And I apologize, that question was by Dr. Alfonso Aguilar Pereira. There is another question from Nicole Auil Gomez. She said, great presentation, thank you. What countries are already participating in the process?
The entire, all the member states of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO are participating. This is the entire, all the coastal and maritime countries of the world are participating and have been actually participating in the decade, but more importantly, is the entire planet who is working via, because this is not intergovernmental, is not IOC decade, is the United Nations, and the decade was declared by the United Nations General Assembly. And as we speak, they are discussing on the implementation plan the entire United Nations General Assembly. So this is one of the, as I said in my introduction, this is one on a lifetime that we who are working in ocean science opportunity to move forward in an entire global platform. So I would, to answer to our colleague, all the countries, members of the United Nations are working for the decade.
I'm sure there were other questions coming. Okay, there is one here in the chat. Let me see how I can open it. This is from Ruth Perry. For the US colleagues, we now have the US National Committee for the UN Ocean Decade, and she provided the link for them to go. To reach her, if we need to, you have any questions, she provides also her email. Cesar, you know, I have been involved in this process from the beginning, and when you were giving your presentation, you put a lot of emphasis in capacity building. And I have two comments or questions, and I would like to see if you can probably address them a little bit. One of them, there is already a capacity in the region, but this capacity is not even distributed. So we need to understand where the capacity is available and what are where it's not, and how can we do to transfer that capacity. So it will be something valuable to develop, like a map or annotated maps of where the capacity is available and who can provide that capacity and how that capacity can be transferred or create mechanisms of cooperation to transfer capacity, not just develop it, but also to transfer it to other regions. So if you can comment on that.
Yes, thank you, Alejandro. And I was precisely thinking about that. As you notice, the process for developing the implementation plan and as well as to mobilize the UN decade has been, even though it's a global action, the core of the action is going on at the regional level, because we understand that the regions, they do have a specifics and they are not the same. We cannot have one size fit all. Here is extremely important to understand that. And our region and the region of this conference is one of the largest, is a mosaic of not only cultures, but as well as of the ocean science capacity. Here we have one of the highest capacity in ocean science that we can find in the world. And I will recommend all of us to read again the Global Ocean Science Report produced by the IOC, and where we can find exactly the size of the countries related to the ocean science production. And you can see that this is a very strange map that we can see. And this is the case here. The capacity in the region is asymmetrically distributed. Here in this region, in the Americas, including Canada and United States and the entire Latin America and the Caribbean, we have in ocean science, only in ocean science, programs at the university level, bachelor, master, and a PhD. We have an offer of more than 700 possibilities in the entire spectrum of ocean science. And there are more than 100 university programs and in those universities that can we have access to, without considering, because the region also has the access to UK and to European countries, because there is a clear historical link between most of the countries in this region and the European countries, including France, Netherlands, and UK. So, but what is the point is that we have only 67%, or almost 70% of that offer is only offered by 5 countries. So that is the whole point. So we have capacity, and in order to move into one of the objectives of the decade is that we need to go through a real transfer of technology and knowledge and capacity. And that is only possible if we are strengthening our institutional networks. That concerning the capacity. You say that you have a second question, Alejandro.
No, that you went into my second question.
Yes, if you will allow me, Alejandro, I would like to also comment for our colleagues another important point here.
Yes.
I will add 2 comments here. First of all, is that one of the major interests for the GCFI is precisely ecosystems. It's precisely the life, yeah, in the water, in the ocean. And here you have at least 3 of these societal outcomes that are directly related to you. We need to strengthen the links where science is precisely not only providing diagnostic that we have been doing for decades, especially during the last century and this century, but we need to move forward from diagnostic to prognostic, to prognose. We need to go forward and provide science that is of benefit for the society, that we really can use that science in order to develop policy. in order to develop new ways of managing our natural and living marine resources. We need to think that we have a great responsibility here that is related to also to the Sustainable Development Goals. One of them is to feed the global population. And you have, all of you, you have the opportunity to have a great contribution by transforming the science that you are producing into a tool and a bridge or a tool that can achieve a better management of the living marine resources and in general of the ecosystems in order to feed the population. This is only one example.
Thank you, Cesar. I think we are all in the same frame of mind of where we're going to need to do and what we need to do for the next 10 years. So even from now, we don't have to wait the next 10 years. We should be doing that right now. We have another question from Dr. Sara Frias-Torres. What is the potential for tangible outcomes based on previous efforts of this level? Or do we risk for this UN decade to become just a plan or a paper and no outcome in reality?
Yeah, Sarah, you are right. We have been seeing a lot of projects and initiatives, etc. And on science, and particularly in ocean science, we have we have been seeing that ocean science has been kind of an exclusive club where only we who are experts, we are talking to each other and saying how good we are, and we are not going beyond that club. The UN decade is precisely that opportunity to go outside this this private club and reach the other communities, and as well as to be able to reach the other stakeholders, and especially the social science, and use the science we are producing in order to transform the way how we are dealing with the planet. What is clear, and this is the message of the decade, is that we cannot continue business as usual. And I used to say, and I continue to say, the only this is not a problem of any individual or one of us, or that we would like to have a ocean science at the service of the economy. No, the critical point here is that we need to transform the way how we are addressing and managing the nature. Unless we do that, we are going to disappear as a civilization. No way. It might be some kind of radical thinking, but this is very simple. We need to continue working in such a way that we are living within the nature and transform and using in a sustainable way, so we can ensure that we can continue living in this planet with the right conditions for the human beings. So the decade, and this is to answer to Sarah, the point is that we need to move forward, all of us, jointly. If we are willing to have this opportunity to be an opportunity of the lifetime. Here, all the countries are supporting us. So that's why I stress the importance, and I also we like to stress the message from our colleague from the United States on the creation of the national committees for the UN decade. We need to mobilize everybody, particularly at the national level.
Thank you for that. We have two more questions. This is from again from Alfonso Aguilar Pereira. Alfonso is asking, this is very important for many students to learn about this. This emerged from the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. However, information of the existence of the ocean decade is still self-needed. to be spread at the university level. I teach management and conservation at an undergraduate level, and I always mention to my students about the SDGs. But this Ocean Decade initiative is new for me. So that's the reason to ask about the Spanish material for building capacity at Mexican students, for instance.
Thank you, Alfonso. Yes, in addition to what Alfonso just mentioned, that is we need also, if you take, for instance, in average, a well-seasoned expert is in average about 50 years old person. Yeah. So we are going to face the implementation of a decade program, 10 years. So that person that today is 50 will, in 10 years from now, will be 60. Yeah. And in order to carry out all this work, we cannot pretend that those who are 50, 40 today alone are going to achieve all of this. We need to, that's why the decade is also an opportunity, and one of the challenges and the objectives is to integrate the young generation of experts, of scientists, into this endeavor so they can carry on the flag after these 10 years. So that's why this is the reason why the decade has established the early career ocean professionals, or ECOPs, where we have in all our groups people who are just finishing the undergraduate studies, master studies, so in the 20s, 30s. So that group will be the core group who are going to carry on the decade and the outcomes of the decade into the next decade, after 2030. And also concerning the materials, yes, I agree with Alfonso, the need for having materials directly into Spanish. We have been working as well in the ocean literacy, or what we call in Spanish, cultura oceánica. So that is also important, that we work at the level. When we say ocean literacy, this is not only for schools students, it's also for everybody at the different levels, project managers, policymakers, etc. That is also an opportunity, Alfonso, to use materials in English, Spanish, French, etc., and particularly in Spanish, for answering your question. So there is an opportunity also we will need to improve in the communication in the decade, to produce more materials in other language than in English, including Spanish.
In reference to the same question from Alfonso, Dalila Dana from Mexico also say hi to you, and also mentioned, and that's a very good point, and we should incorporate the youth into this initiative. And this will be a way to increase, to provide jobs and to have a new generation involved. There is a question a comment in the chat from Presco Smith. He mentioned the Bahamas and the rest of the Caribbean need greater support. Those who have controlled the conservation arena in the region are those who control the economies in the region and to do the greatest damage to the local environment. This has been supported by Candice Dusen. I agree with that. And also, but that's mostly from that. So if you can comment on that, would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Prescott, for this comment. I think that this is This is a reality. We have been, as you know, in average, the major, there are, the economy of the wider Caribbean region has I would say, three major components. If you take the value of the economy in the Caribbean Sea, you have at least three items that are dominating the economy. First of all is the shipping and the maritime industry that represents 75% of the economy. Yeah, 75%. If you take out that, the problem with the shipping and maritime industry is that not necessarily the benefits of that industry is countries in the region, they are not benefiting directly from that. But this is a big chunk of the economy of the Caribbean Sea. If you take out the 75% of the economy, you will have that 25% is represented essentially by two major elements. The first is tourism, and the second are fisheries. So with that, if you focus on the on countries, particularly on island states, they have two major income. Their GDPs are, in average, 38% of the gross domestic product is coming from tourism. And in some countries, they might reach 90%. You have the example, for instance, of Aruba, where the entire island is only 10 square kilometers are concentrated where they have all the major assets for tourism. And they are reaching 90% of the GDP coming from tourism. And what is that tourism? Is the coral reef, is the beach, is the sun. And if you take in general, particularly the island states, but not necessarily only the island states, major income to those countries is besides the tourism are remittances from people who emigrate from the country, and they are sending money to their countries and their families. This is a big money, a big amount of money that is coming. So, but with the COVID-19 situation, both of those income has been affected very heavily. So what is going on now is that because of the situation we have, we can see, and this is to connect the question that Prescott asked, or the comment, is that now we can see where we have our assets. Yes, it's evident now. We have been living with that and trying not to see where our assets were. So, in order, again, the decade will be a great opportunity for us to really manage those ecosystems. Because when he is asking, when he's commenting, Prescott, that those who are supporting the conservation arena are the same that are controlling the economy. And this is the opportunity for us to really apply an ecosystem-based approach. And also there is the need for going beyond business as usual. And this is an opportunity to really move forward from where only the economic interest is prevailing into a ecosystem approach where you can have, we are not saying that we are not going to use, is that no touch approach is not possible because we need to live, we need to use. But what we need to do is to use in a sustainable way our resources, and there is a need for a clear impact where science that you're producing is going to be used for the decision-making project and policy-making.
Alejandro, you need to unmute your mic.
There are two or three other questions that Cesar probably will be addressed by email or by the chat later on. We will have the answers for those ones. Some from Adriana Santos Martinez, Michelle Charrer, and Dalila Aldana made some comments about Cultura Oceanica and culture and science and the need for Latin America and the region. So we will forward those questions to Cesar so he can answer that. Cesar, I want to thank you for this presentation and from your answers, which were really reflects what is going on right now in the region, and you touch from the youth to the COVID. So you really went through the whole spectrum. And in behalf of GCFI, thank you for allowing us to participate and to be involved in this important initiative. And we're looking forward to continue working with you. Once again, thank you very much. I forward to Fadila, but I think this ends your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Toro. I would like to reiterate what Alejandro said to thank you today. The UN Decade of Ocean Science is really of importance for us here in the region, especially in the Caribbean, which are predominantly large ocean states. So I think this was very pertinent for the region. And based on the discussions in the chat, we can see how much this means to our GCFI community. So thank you once again. And to those of you that are just joining, we just had our first thematic keynote from Dr. Cesar Toro from UNESCO. And we are going to soon transition to our second keynote, which will be from Dr. Yvette Diei-Ouadi. So please bear with us as we just transition. And also for those of you now joining us for the first time this week, on the bottom panel, you will notice that there is a little world sign. And please use that to click to choose the language of choice for your session today. We have live simultaneous interpretation in English and Spanish. Please also use the Q&A box to put any questions for our thematic keynote, Dr. Diei-Ouadi. And feel free to also add any comments that you may have in the chat. After Dr. Diei-Ouadi's keynote speech, we'll then have a live question and answer session with her. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our second thematic keynote. So Dr. Yvette Diei-Ouadi holds a veterinary doctorate from France and has over 25 years of experience in post-harvest fisheries. Dr. Diei-Ouadi is the Fishery and Aquaculture Officer of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean Basin, Barbados. She coordinates as well the Secretariat of the Western Central Atlantic Fishery Commission, which we know as WCAFC, and since she joined the Caribbean office in July 2018. This is following her 14 years of assignment in the FAO headquarters based in Rome, Italy, where she was a fishery industry officer. So now I'm just going to share her presentation.
Thank you. Thanks to GCFI partner for the opportunity given to be among the keynote speakers for this 73rd conference to introduce the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, an important topic and a subject on which GCFI has been playing also an important role, a pivotal role in contributing to the coordination committee in the region here. I wish to be grateful to my colleagues of the Secretariat of the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries, the International Steering Committee, which is hosted by FAO headquarters, And also from the region, the partners in the region, Canary, USMEs, the two regional fishery body, CRFM or SPESCA. We have as well the Caribbean Network of Fisherfolk Organization. We have the Honduras Association of Aqua Farmers. We have a broad range of stakeholders who have joined in this regional steering committee and have framed, have provided input during our successive discussions within the meeting of the committee, which has helped in framing this presentation. So I wish to acknowledge their contribution as well in this presentation that I will share with you right now. Okay. Okay. So this presentation will be centered around 5 main points. I will give a talk on why this International Year for Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture is important, and the historical background, the global historical background of its declaration, the initiative within the region, within the Western Central Atlantic Fisheries region, and then provide a snapshot of what next we are expecting to do in terms of the preparation of this important year, the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture in this wider Caribbean region. As most of you know, small-scale fisheries play a pivotal role in terms of food security and poverty eradication. The information at hand suggests that over 90% of fishers and fish workers are small-scale. And we have same in the region. Small-scale aquaculture is also important. Most are in developing countries. And when we refer here to seeds, fisheries by nature in this region are small-scale. So the importance in terms of food and nutrition security, poverty alleviation, the livelihood of the fish workers cannot be, cannot be underestimated. So this data also suggests that half of the fishers and fish workers are women, and women, it is well documented that they are involved in the downstream operations, fishmongers, fish processors, fish traders, but women are also involved in financing the some fishing operations, so they play a significant role along the value chain. Despite this important contribution of small-scale fisheries and small-scale aquaculture, this role is not fully recognized, and their potential is not well unlocked. So, with marginalization, insufficient access to resources. Here, the resources can be financial resources, productive resources, but also access to basic amenities, access to information for trade, for instance, marketing. They have limited access to these. The exclusion from policy and decision-making processes, it is well documented as well, and this is beyond global reach. The poverty and high level of vulnerability within these communities, yet they are important, but we have these concerns on these two subsectors. That's the reason why the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture has been declared for an overall goal. The overall goal being that to promote the sustainable development of small-scale fisheries and small-scale aquaculture food system, to improve the livelihood of the workers themselves, but the livelihood of the well-being of the consumers. Because if there is a fish, if there is seafood, if there is a food, an inclusive and a sustainable seafood, consumers will have a better access to this food. So it's for our well-being as well. So that's the overall goal of that year, with two specific purposes. The first being to draw attention, the attention of the global community on the role that these subsectors play in food security and nutrition, in poverty eradication and sustainable use of natural resources, and this will increase the global understanding and lead to a better support to these two subsectors, the stakeholders, the actors that are involved in these subsectors. The second purpose is to improve this dialogue, the global dialogue, the dialogue between different actors. It can be between the fish workers themselves, but between these fish workers, fish producers, and other actors, private sectors, policymakers. It is important to have this dialogue so that there is they can influence the decision, make their voice heard, and influence the decisions and policies that shape their daily life. And this is at a whole level, from the local community up to the global level. So in terms of the historical background of the declaration of this International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022, the first time that this was addressed was within the 32nd session of the Committee on Fisheries, where a proposal was made to declare an international year dedicated to artisanal fisheries and aquaculture, and this to sensitize public opinion and government on these subsectors, but focusing as well on the most vulnerable rural areas that are constrained by poor governance and generally a low capacity to make a sustainable use of natural resources, aquaculture, fisheries resources. I should recall that the committee, the FAO Committee on Fisheries, is the most important global forum for debate, policy debate, and for adoption of policy instruments in fisheries and aquaculture. In the fisheries and aquaculture sector, at the global level, it's the most important multilateral forum that exists, where we have this debate and you have the instrument endorsed at global level. So this committee made endorsed this proposal, which has then been taken up by the UN General Assembly the subsequent year in 2017. The 72nd UN General Assembly, the session, declared 2022 as the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. And the FAO, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, has been tasked as a lead agency in collaboration with other organizations and UN bodies. So when this assignment to FAO was made, there has been the subsequent year in 2028, the 33rd session of COFI, which welcome the declaration of this year. And after COFI, there has been the establishment by FAO of an interdepartmental IAFA task force with a website subsequently created with different materials, including a flyer here in the official languages of FAO. Here you have the website, the link to the website that you can access. An international steering committee has been established, and this international committee is the most comprehensive as possible. You have different actors, UN bodies, or you have, for instance, the international Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD. You have ICSF, whom you may know. You have the Too Big to Ignore research partner. You have the Global Aquaculture Alliance. You have the World Aquaculture Society. So just a few of these that are part of this international steering committee for the preparation of the international year. And IAFA Secretariat is based in FAO, is hosted by FAO, which support to achieve the objective of the international year by coordinating the development and implementation of action plan, preparing regular report or document to inform some forum, UN or other public general public opportunity. I will just give you an example. The 34th session of COFI will be held next year, February next year. And this COFI, as you know, which has a significant role globally, as I said, this COFI will be briefed on the progress in the preparation of IAFA 2022. There is a background paper which will be presented to COFI members on IAFA 2022, and this will be done by the Secretariat of IAFA. What, from our region perspective, what has been undertaken when there has been this development at global level with FAO taking the leadership and establishing the Secretariat, the steering committee. From the WCAFC perspective, or the Western Central Atlantic Fisheries perspective, this wider Caribbean region, in 2029, at its 17th session, WCAFC was presented a background paper on small-scale fisheries, in which paper there was a chapter on the preparation of the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. This paper was well received, overwhelmingly well received by the Commission, and this Commission encouraged members to actively participate in planning the International Year and to form a coordination group, that was the term used, which group will coordinate regional activities and participate in the global planning processes for IAFA 2022. So that's a mandate that was given by the Commission to the region stakeholders in order to participate to the preparation of IAFA actively. Based on this, when the Secretary of WCAFC was invited at the panel discussion in June a panel discussion that was organized by Too Big to Ignore and GCFI, which was focused on COVID-19 and small-scale fisheries. And FAO had to share its experience on the support to small-scale fisheries in order to build back better. So FAO shared this experience, the activities that has been going on and that has been undertaken, but also underscored the importance of strengthening existing partnerships and collaborating with key partners, stakeholders in the region to more effectively build a resilient small-scale fisheries to deal adequately with external shocks, to be prepared to deal with these shocks. A shock like COVID-19 was at stake. So this also the Secretary of WCAFC used the opportunity of that forum to highlight the fact that this partnership will be instrumental, will be essential in coordinating actions towards the development of a program to prepare for IAFA 2022 in the Caribbean region. So as a follow-up to this, because this was well received when this proposal, this suggestion at the panel discussion was made by the Secretary of WCAFC, there was a good perception from the participant. So as a follow-up, there have been some discussions, some brainstorming sessions among stakeholders in this region, but also coordinating with the International Steering Committee, the Secretariat, the IAFA Secretariat in FAO, for proper guidance, and which has led to the establishment in August 2020, this year, of the Western Central Atlantic Committee for Coordination of IAFA 2022 preparation in the Caribbean. And I will tell you, you will see the structure for this committee. It is a committee which is entirely led by fisher and aquaculture representative, civil society, and regional partners. So a full ownership by the key stakeholders in the region, while FAO, through WCAFC Secretary, is playing a facilitation role. This committee, the Western Central Atlantic Coordination Committee, has identified 4 lines of actions which are consistent with the line of action at a global level. The one identified by the steering committee, the International Steering Committee. The first line of action being advocacy and awareness raising to encourage full integration of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture, stimulate a global debate, increase awareness. The second line of action on knowledge creation and dissemination. The third, policy making, which is important, evidence-based policies, integrated and holistic approaches, cross-cutting national policies, and the importance of public-private sector cooperation and partnership, and the promotion of corporate social responsibilities are under this line of action. The last line of action being on capacity building and education, with a specific attention on empowering women and youth through knowledge building and skills development. So these are the 4 lines of actions for this committee: advocacy and awareness raising, knowledge creation and dissemination, policy making, capacity building, and education. here is the composition of the committee as it stands so far. But we are open because the committee can be expanded based on some entities or members who will feel, who will see the interest. They can be co-opted to join this committee. So far, you will see the key players in the region in terms of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture are leading this committee. The Caribbean Network of Fisher Folk Organization, the Confipesca, CRFM and OSPESCA, GCFI and Canary, who are leading the communication strategy, outreach, and UWSM for the roadmap. Like I said, this is a committee which is which we aim will expand for the participation of other sector. It can be the private sector. We can have the tourism sector, representative of the tourism sector joining us. At least this is our aim, to make this year as comprehensive, as efficient, effective as possible. This committee is raising awareness about the livelihood for small-scale fishers and farmers and the services they provide. It's tasked to engage partners to foster local and regional action in a sustainable manner. The committee has already prepared or finalized, published its terms of reference, which terms of reference have been shared, have been communicated to the Commission, the Western Central Atlantic Commission, and to the International Steering Committee through the Secretariat of IAFA 2022, hosted by FAO. The committee meets monthly. Since August, it meets monthly. And we think our last meeting will be the one at the end of November this year, which will be used to finalize all the remaining product roadmap, communication strategy. And then for next year, we'll have a new round of meeting, which may be every 2 months or quarterly meeting to monitor the implementation of the action we will agree upon. The report to Coffee 33rd paper, I mean, that one, I mentioned it, the International Steering Committee through the Secretariat will report to Coffee 34th, and there is a specific paragraph on the preparation of IAFA in the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean. That's the activities of our committee, because this is the first initiative at a regional level in terms of preparation of IAFA. From the global perspective, that's the first initiative. And what we have done has also triggered interest in other regions. We have been told, for instance, that in Asia, they are now setting up to have their coordination committee for IAFA, informed by what is going on in the wider Caribbean. So we are an example, and we have reported it to Coffee 34th. In our terms of reference, we have defined vision, mission, goals, and some proposed champion countries that you can see here, which are in line with the one of the International Steering Committee, but there are specificities for the wider Caribbean region, for our region, which are reflected in the mission and the goals of this celebration in the wider Caribbean region. I just wanted to say some few words about the champions. Countries that you see here are countries where some best practices have been spotted. Now, we are working now towards setting some clear criteria to characterize these best practices and document them, which practices will then not be promoted at all levels. Here, I mean, these best practices can be at the local level, can be from fisher folk organization, fisher folk telling their story, but it can be also fisheries authorities. It can be policymakers in terms of implementation, proven track, experience of implementation of the small scale guideline, for instance. So some of these are clear, transparent criteria to document these are best practices in this country where we have been told, we gathered that there are best practices, lessons learned in terms of which will be useful in the preparation and celebrations of the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022. Our strategic priorities for this Western Central Atlantic Committee, Coordination Committee, developing the roadmap. I said about it. I said some few words about it. The themes that we have identified in the next slide. I will show them the communication strategy, and which will be finalized soon together with the roadmap in coordination with the international committee, as well as the management of these tools. Champions countries, I said some words about it. Mobilizing resources, it's very key. We need to mobilize resources within the region with other partners who can be private sector, the tourism sector, and mobilize. We gather that there is a trust fund which has been established at the global level. The modality for this trust fund project and how we can benefit from it. We have engaged in this discussion with our colleagues, and we are hopeful for a good outcome on this, so that we can implement our program and develop within this participatory process of the Western Central Atlantic Coordination Committee. Liaising with the steering committees, when the Asian region will establish their committee inspired by our initiative, we welcome any platform, any opportunity for exchanging, communicating among ourselves, which can enrich this process of the preparation of the year in both regions, but also in other regions which will establish their preparation committee for this international year under the leadership of the global, the international steering committee. Our theme, so there is an overarching theme, which is resilience and recovery. You should agree with me how important it is in this region. With a cross-cutting theme on gender and youth. We have 3 sub-themes: social resilience, to integrate social protection in small-scale fisheries. The sub-theme innovation, promoting innovation along the value chains to create livelihood opportunities. Under this innovation as well, promoting, embracing the ICT throughout the value chain, and in policy, in advocacy, in policy influence, marketing, intra-regional trade. Marketing, domestic marketing, but also intra-regional trade. The last sub-themes being on intersectoral linkages, which is important. The blue economy in the Wake-Up-Sea region, we have to conceptualize it and position small-scale fisheries and small-scale aquaculture within this framework. The linkages with other sector, I did mention the tourism sector, which is the key player here in the Caribbean. How to create these linkages to benefit the preparation and the celebrations of the year for the benefit of the small-scale fisher and fish workers and the consumer, for all of us, indeed. Small-scale fisheries and small-scale aquaculture in marketing and trade. We've identified some key opportunities at the national and global, regional and global level toward the preparation, the celebrations even of the IAFA 2022. The first being this opportunity given by GCFI to introduce the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022. But there are many other opportunities upcoming where this year will be promoted. There will be an awareness raising, the public awareness raising, advocacy about this year will be done through these different opportunities. In terms of the champion countries, each country will have its tailored roadmap, which can be workshops or contribution to regional events and some local events and miscellaneous other events. That's what they will be identified by the stakeholders in that country to prepare for 2022 celebrations. We have identified as well some policy making and advocacy opportunities at a regional and international level. So whether within the fisher folk organization themselves, fisher folk or aquaculture organization themselves, for instance, you see within CNFO forum, there is an opportunity within the two regional fishery body, OSPESCA and CRFM, which have their ministerial council. So it's at policy level to play this role. Raising this awareness, bringing this on the table for this high-level meeting. It's important. But also at the other regional opportunities within WCAFC, the 18th session of WCAFC, to present the implementation of the recommendation that was made by WCAFC 17, which encourage countries to be fully engaged in the preparation of this year and contribute to the global planning process for the IAFA 2022. Globally, Coffee 34 will be another opportunity to showcase what the region is doing and is expecting as well in terms of the preparation of the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022. Resource mobilization, the budget, the planning. We are in a process. I said some few words about it when I was referring to the role of the International Committee. I know there is a trust fund which has been established, but we need to mobilize resources within our region for other sectors. Previous international years have been very successful in doing so, in mobilizing extra budgetary fund, mobilizing resources from the private sector. So this is something we are aiming for in the future to implement our roadmap or our program. So what steps are next? The finalization of our product. The product after the TOR that are final, we have this program, the roadmap program, the communication strategy, which needs to be finalized. I said something about the champions, the criteria to be established and characterization of these champions, documenting them adequately so that we can properly promote them, visibility and sharing them at all levels. Here it is important we will involve, it will be, these criteria will be in close collaboration with the fisher folk organization, and GCFI will play a critical role because of its experience in this Gladden Memorial Award. Some of the criteria can inspire the establishment of criteria for selection, for characterization of the best practices of that have been spotted to us, those who will be the flag bearers, who will actually inform the promotion process, the advocacy process, the awareness raising process for the year in the region and beyond the region. Our next step is resource mobilization. Without resources, we cannot implement our work program. So it is important that we mobilize resources. When I showed the event of the key events for data opportunities to to table the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries, especially from the regional perspective, I mark the launching of the year in January 2022. But we are also thinking of having a dedicated event for the regional, regional stakeholders, something which can be held on next year. But this is resources permitting if we can have a dedicated regional event to launch IAFA in the Western Central Atlantic. So these are the steps forward. We will be working together with all of you. We aim to attract more partners to be involved in this process of the preparation and the celebrations of IAFA 2022. Thank you for your kind attention, and I'm open to any question and answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Yvette Diei-Ouadi. I would like to invite Dr. Yvette Diei-Ouadi and Dr. Alejandro Acosta to please enable their mics and start their video so that we can go on with the question and answer session. So just for those of you joining in, please use the bottom panel. You will see there's a question and answer box. So please direct your questions there. Over to you, Alejandro.
Good morning. Can you hear me and see me, Fadila?
Yes, I can hear you and see you fine, Alejandro, and I can also hear Yvette.
Good morning, all. Yvette, thank you very much for this presentation, which really fall into the mission of GCFI. GCFI has been involved in small-scale fisheries and working with fisheries throughout all our life. I don't know how many years, and it's something that we are very happy to be involved and trying to promote the International Year of the Small-Scale Fisheries in 2022. GCFI have been a partner with Too Big to Ignore, another initiative for too long, and this goes really in the core of what we are. So that was an excellent presentation. We have some questions related to you. And I would like to start with asking you, small-scale fisheries or small-scale fisheries communities need to be empowered and need to be recognized. How the International Year of the Small-Scale Fisheries will approach the recognizing small-scale fisheries in the region at the local, national, and regional level.
Thank you, Alejandro. The recognition starts by understanding their role, their contribution. This means we document what they are actually doing, how they are contributing to whether the economy, whether the livelihood, the food security and nutrition. This needs first to be acknowledged So documenting this is one aspect. Then promoting it is another step. And it should not be only the small-scale fishers and aquaculture saying what they are doing, but I mean, all of us who recognize that these people are doing great. These two subsectors are essential. So and that's what I would like to underline in terms of recognizing first what they are doing and promoting it through the tools and that will be developed, or the mechanism. So the promotion this year, I mean, since each country will have the opportunity to set up its national mechanism to raise the visibility of these fishes, that's we for the committee as well, coordinating this to be this buffer in order to raise it at a regional and global level. And this is what we aiming for in terms of the, as you said, the empowering of this, the need first to be recognized, the need to we need to acknowledge their contribution, and the empowering will come with the tools that will be prepared, as you've seen in our line of action that we have set up for this knowledge creation and dissemination. That is one of the line of action through this knowledge creation and dissemination, and the capacity building and education line of action. We will empower and that will be an opportunity to empower them by the curriculum development. And this is just some example I'm providing. So that's I hope I answer your question on that. Alejandro, you can let me know, please.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting and what I want. We have other questions, and I wanna read some of them to you so you can approach. We have one from Eddie Wade. What role do you see the private sector playing in the IAFA for the region, and how are those partners being mobilized to contribute to the proposed activities?
Okay. First, I will start by the last question: how they are mobilized. For the time being, we are in the discussing this. All this is being discussed within the committee. So we have not yet made any step towards mobilizing the private sector. Even though I said it in my presentation, that's our aim to have them in this committee in the preparation of the year. So it is a step forward in terms of mobilizing the private sector. Private sector, for them to be involved, to engage in an action, they need to see the benefit. And seeing the benefit, they need to understand though how we can mobilize them. It's raising this awareness about the importance of linking with small-scale fisheries, or for being involved in this international year of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture. What role they will play? One role, I gathered from previous international year that successful celebrations were connected with the involvement of private sector in terms of financing, in terms of promoting this collaboration. So what we are aiming for here is private sector being aware of the interest in this year and being able to assist in the implementation of the program and roadmap and all the actions that we have developed. So this is what we aiming for the success of this international year. the private sector, the tourism sector, because they have some good experience. Operational, it's a financial, but also operational experience. So, when you see the tourism sector organizing the yearly these carnival in several countries in the region, that can also inspire the celebration of the artisanal year of the International Year of Artisanal Year Fisheries and Aquaculture. So that's something we are building on. It's not only financial, but operational. They are experienced in leading on this type of event. So this is these are some of the purposes or objectives in involving the private sector and engaging the private sector as well. As you know, we have this intersectoral collaboration. That's what we mentioned in our under our sub teams. The issue of the marginalization by other sector, having this sector together here in the celebration we are aiming, we are hoping that it will address to some extent this issue of marginalization and competition with the other sector. So this is what I can say, Eric. Thanks for the question, Bright. A very, very interesting question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Yvette. There is a comment from Dalila Aldana. It's in French, and I hope my translation was good, but she says it was a pleasure to hear your conference, and she hopes good for you in the project. But we have another question from Nicola Il Gomez. Can you give us a couple of examples of environmental responsible small-scale aquaculture initiative in the region? If there are any recognized certifications for this aquaculture business or aquaculture stewardship council can provide. Thanks.
Okay. What I can say is that these are some of the good practices or best practices that we are documenting right now through the criteria that we will set up. During the discussion of the committee, I recall, I cannot say right now the name, but I recall that there are best practices in terms of aquaculture that have been raised in some countries, whether in Mexico or Brazil, or if I recall well, and even in some other country like Honduras. I cannot say right now exactly what it is about, but in the region, we do have a couple of good practices in aquaculture, in responsible aquaculture, which means what what the person is asking as a question. So I think that's what she and the person mentioned. We will actually, these are to pattern the best practices on these two, these two examples that she has asked. So it's part of the process. We have gathered that there are some of these practices or best practices to be documented, but I can reply electronically later on what specifically are these examples. Yes, I can see it. But within the discussion of the committee, and now that we are even exchanging with the regional partners, we are gathering more evidence in terms of good practices for the flag bearers in the region. Thank you.
Okay. Another question from Frias Torres. What specific actions could help support women working at any level in small-scale fisheries? Or do we need first to document their contribution fully before we start taking actions?
do we need to document fully their contribution? I think for the women, that throughout the value chain, we need women and youth. We need it's something we need to do. It's not waiting to do something, because like I said, it's already fully, it's well documented that they are contributing. Even though there are some, there may be some data missing here and there, but we have enough to start empowering them, to start engaging them in policy, engaging them throughout the value chain to strengthen their contribution to unlock what they have as a potential. So for this question, I think no, we do not need to document fully. We have already enough information to frame, to develop or design some more programs, some interventions to secure the water small scale women and youth can play as a role in the sector. So that's what I can say on this question. And thank you again for this.
Alejandro, you need to unmute your mic.
Sorry. We have other questions. We have one from Cesar Toro. Let me find it. Yvette, can you comment on the importance of governance for an effective management of fisheries?
Yes, that's important. The governance of fish. That's why we there is one line of action on policy making, governance in applying the ecosystem approach to fisheries. For the management and conservation of it. So governance is an essential part for this program. Because when you see governance in fisheries, that's to enable the management to create this framework. Because if there is no resources, there is no sustainability of resources, there won't be any activity from the part of the fishers. So that's why, in terms of our line of action, so that's we pinpointed during my presentation, the issue of integrated and holistic approaches was mentioned for the national policies, enforcing the best practices in terms of fisheries, fishing, the management, the conservation of the resources and resource base. So I concur with him. Governance is key. And that's the reason why it has been also seen as an essential line of action within the committee, within the work of this committee in the Caribbean. So I see, for instance, within the framework of the ICM, the SAP ICM, our partner of the SAP ICM being involved, collaborating within this initiative for the International Year for Artisanal Fisheries, not only WCAFC facilitating with our partners in the region, but seeing as well IOCARIB, because it is the holistic way of addressing the issues that are impacting fisheries and aquaculture in the region. So thank you.
Okay, we have one more question. I think we need to check the time, but for the moment, we have another question from Adriana Santos Martinez from Colombia. And she's thank you for the conference. And she want to know how Caribbean universities can join the International Year of the Small Scale Fisheries.
Okay. How the university, the academia, research, academia are part of this, they are fully part of this process. How they can join, what we aiming to do when we have our communication strategy finalized, how to manage it, how to reach out to all these stakeholders. We will definitely spread the word so that all can engage in the preparation for this year. Another aspect is about we have thought about these champions. So universities, we can identify, there may be some possibility of having some more champions in our universities. So I mean, contacting universities or having a call for champions, so that some universities who think that based on the criteria that have been published, that have been shared, they have some champions in terms of this international year can be another opportunity to engage in this year. So that's I think it is pending our communication strategy, the finalization of all our products that we are now about to deliver by end of November. In December, we will then have the opportunity to move forward in terms of reaching out to all of these, the researcher, the academia, the other civil society, the policymakers, the fisheries authorities, and of course, the Fisher Folk Organization and Aquaculture.
Okay, I see. We just reached the time we have for this section of the GCFI today. There are some very interesting questions in the chat from Prescott Smith from the Bahamas, and there are other comments. So I will encourage them to send those chats through email so we can answer those ones. I would like to echo one comment from Bob Glazer. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. We are very excited about this initiative. And as I mentioned, this is really in our wheelhouse. There are so many exciting activities that we have planned for the upcoming year, and they will align perfectly with the International Year of the Small Scale Fisheries. On behalf of GCFI, on behalf of myself, and really thank you for the time and the dedication to this initiative in which we are fully engaged, and we planning to continue working with you. I encourage all the participants to reach us through emails and to get engaged in this important initiative for the small scale fisheries of the region. So thank you very much for your participation, and I'm passing the microphone to Fadila. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Some have asked for my email. It is in the chat. I've put my email in the chat for further follow-up. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Yvette. And I believe that your presentation today is a perfect introduction to the Fishes Forum. One of the things that you mentioned in your presentation was like the use of champions. And here at GCFI, we have our Fisheries for Fishers initiative, where we have fishers, small-scale fishers, some of them recreational, commercial. We do have small-scale fishers throughout the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico who exhibit sustainable or conservation-minded practices. And we are going to meet quite a few of them here today. So I think that's a great segue into our fishers. And then our fishers today are going to be talking specifically about the impact of COVID-19, not only on fishers themselves, but also their communities and how can they work towards solutions. So thank you again, Yvette, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more because GCFI is very pleased to be working with you for this. And we look forward to this partnership moving forward into a very successful international year of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture. So thank you again.
Thanks.
And now we're going to transition to our Fishers Forum. So as I just stated, we have several fishers that have received the Gladden Memorial Award. The Gladden Memorial Award recognizes fishers that have made an impact within their communities. They're champions within their communities. And we have so far about 28 from throughout the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico region. So today we're going to start off with a few short presentations from fishers from Grenada, from Barbados, from Puerto Rico, and also from Texas. And then we're going to follow that, and then also a fisher from St. Lucia. And then we're going to follow that up with a moderated panel discussion. And this is going to be a panel discussion moderated by fishers and consistent only of fishers. So I'm going to start off by sharing the first presentation from Cecil Marquez. So Cecil Marquez was the Gladden Memorial Award winner back in 2018. He's from Grenada, and he's not only a major influence within Guyave, but he is a role model for many of the younger fishers there. And before I show the presentation, I know we do have some people who have just joined. You use the bottom panel on your Zoom ribbon, you'll see that there's a little world sign, and that's where you can access interpretation. We have live interpretation in English and Spanish. And you'll also see that we have a Q&A box. If you do have any questions for our panelists today, please put your questions there. And then there's also a chat box where you can also chat to other participants here today. So I'm going to get started by sharing a short presentation from Cecil on the impact of COVID-19 in Grenada.
Hello, everyone. I am Cecil Marquez from the Spiceland of Grenada and the land of big yellowfin tuna. I must say hello to the members of GCFI family, GMA winners, the scientific community, students, and everyone locked in on this exciting conference, GCFI73. This is a conference unlike others and should be remembered as a historic one. Our presence here today is indicative of our deep and unflinching support for GCFI and its commitment to research, conservation, and protection of our beautiful and unique home we call Earth. Over the past few months, the world has been thrown into a state of consternation. COVID-19 has spread its destructive wings, threatening and affecting our very existence and livelihood. If we look at the effects of COVID-19 on SSF in the Caribbean region, throughout the entire region, SSF have been hit hard with the advent of this disease, some worse off than others. Countries that rely heavily on external markets, as in the case of Grenada, have taken the full force and frontline battering of the fisheries sector from COVID-19. Entire fishing seasons will be gone. Yellowfins in Grenada, lobsters, skunk, snappers in other territories. Grenada exports about 95% of its yellowfin tuna to the United States market, which brings in millions of dollars into its economy. All this revenue will be lost this year, and I'm using Grenada as an example because we all have the same experiences and are suffering the same fate, more or less, in almost all of the islands and other territories. We are now faced with some serious issues affecting fisher folks. Reduced income for fishermen, vendors, cleaners, and net repairers. Longline fishing fleets are not able to operate, and limited a lift to export market in the United States. Net and beach scenes operators, divers, and pot fishers. Total loss of income for fishermen supplying hoteliers due to tourism shutting down. This is the only source of income for a lot of these fishers. Fish processing plant unable to export to external markets, resulting in layoff of workers. Monthly fisher folks meetings discontinued due to social distancing. Little or no resources to host virtual meetings. The psychological, economical, and social stress on families whose entire lives depend on the sector. My personal analysis of this situation shows me that women are in line for a serious hit. About 90% of our vendors are women. Some are even boat owners. Many of these women are single parents and support large families, providing food, medicine, clothing, and other forms of living. Therefore, we are looking at a scenario of where would the money or the resources come from for the sustainability. Unlike most fishermen who create a carefree or who live a carefree life, there's a strong sense of responsibility clearly visible in almost all of our women fisher folks. Loss of confidence. There's a fear factor that presents itself. There is fear in the eyes and in the voices. There is fear of not knowing what might happen next year or beyond. There's a fear of not being able to feed the children, a fear of not being able to meet the mortgages and other obligations, repair the boats and gears. There is the greatest fear of all in the minds that I believe that they will not be able to live and sustain a decent life they once lived before the scourge of this new century. We now have to adapt to live normal lives coexisting with COVID-19. COVID-19 has taught us lessons. One, the vulnerability and fragility of the sector. In a world where small island states do not have access, easy access, that is, to outside ports and markets, and in the unlikely event that there is another crisis, we are going to be facing the same reality. Two, recognition of the link that provides for sustainable livelihood for operators in the SSF sector, food security, and an integral pillar of the economy of many small islands. And number three, that we are not alone. We cannot operate alone. This is globalization, and we are part of the global village. We must explore and find roads and highways for us to access new markets, new opportunities, and to develop the small-scale fisheries sector. Therefore, we have to start exploring new ways and methods of making maximum use of our products. We should start exploring inter-island trade. We can acquire new techniques for smoking and salting as a safeguard. We should aggressively explore new and more lucrative supply chain to move our prize products to those markets. We must encourage fishers to build and manage strong grassroots cooperative and organizations. They support each other in times of needs. The Gulf Fishermen Cooperative helping the retired and elderly men with food during the crisis is an example. We must start planning, strategizing, and mobilizing our fisher folks to become part and parcel of these organizations. The women fisher folks must be encouraged to build themselves into strong and active groups. They have demonstrated very high levels of organizational skills from the beginning of COVID-19. They have shown a spirit and readiness to take leadership roles in this sector. We have never seen that before. Since accepting the role of SSF guidelines, policy mainstreaming gender, involvement in the sector, I have been working to help build women's group around the country. We must now motivate, inspire others to do likewise. We must carry on with the vision of Peter Gladden with the great devotion and enthusiasm to the cause. The road is long, the pathway is difficult, but we must keep on going on and on, forging ahead, never relenting. We must hold the line until we see the other side. Fishers and practitioners of conservation, we must stand firm during these uncertain times in human history. The year 2020 is almost gone like a bad, fleeting dream. But through my lenses, I can still see one beautiful world, one beautiful planet, and beautiful people. One love. I thank you very much, and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Cecil. Next, we're going to move on to a short video from Sylvia White. Sylvia is the Vice President of the Barbados National Union of Fisherfolk, of the Barbados National Union of Fisherfolk organization. And she's also a fish processor and vendor for the past 28 years.
The impact of COVID-19 on me and women in the fishing industry in Barbados. I am Sylvia White, and I'm from Barbados and work as a fish processor and vendor at the Bridgetown Fishing Complex. I have been in the fishing industry for the past 28 years. My livelihood is solely dependent on working in the fishing industry. I'm not alone in this, as there are several other women whose income also depends on their work within the industry. COVID-19 have impacted us in all aspects of my life. Personally, I have to change my whole way of life, not only the way I work, but also in my everyday life, because it wasn't something that I had budgeted for. It is even more difficult being the sole breadwinner in my household. The impact was emotional, mental, and financial. This was not unique only to me. Protocols in place defined by the government to deal with COVID-19 limited the hours for sale and required social distancing, which in turn created long lines under the sun for consumers waiting to purchase fish. As a result, fish sales dropped tremendously. Also, consumers' preference changed to buying smaller amounts as the price increased due to the lower catches. I must add that COVID-19 came at a moment when we were being affected by the sargassum seaweed and we were in the low season for fish catch. All of this caused an increase in the price. There were also the fact that the turnaround time for fishing vessels were slow and longer. This is to say that fish brought in by the vessels were taking a longer time to offload as the number of buyers were reduced given the close of restaurants, which directly affected a number of crew members. Exporters were also affected as there were no way to export their product given the country's lockdown. Their fish were then to be sold at local markets at a much lower price. Cold storage capacity also had a great impact, which affected the production capacity. Even though some days it seems like we had an abundance of fish to get them processed or stored was an issue for us. Women were affected mostly because we are the ones that do the daily processing, and the time allocated for us by the government was not enough for us to function or at a normal capacity. Orderly production was cut by half, which of course went on to affect our income. The operational time because of the lockdown and the curfew time meant shorter work days. No consideration was given to boat owners in case of any emergency with the vessels during the lockdown period. For example, if the pump failed and the boat was sinking, there were no provisions made for the owners to come in to take care of the issue. Or if a crew member was injured at sea, you could not rely on other boats to come out and assist. There was nothing put in place to assist in any way with these matters. With all that was going on, we had to find new ways of working. We had to do more marketing, personalized orders, and more deliveries. We had to do more advanced planning. We started to process the fish, packaging it and storing it. They were packaged in small amounts, such as parcels of 2, 4, and 5 pounds, as persons were buying less fish. Specific days were then designated to go on the road to offer the product as opposed to sell directly in the market, targeting the more remote areas. We began to advertise our product on social media and offer delivery service. We were storing fish for later dates and looking for ways to save more money. COVID also brought changes within the community. Lots of the elderly folk that were sort of independent prior to the pandemic were now relying on younger folks to pay their bills and buy their groceries and medication. There were also more sharing within the communities. Fisherfolk took the initiative of sharing their product with the community via the Department of Elderly Affairs and the Department of Welfare. Farmers were also sharing their products with the community. One thing that came out of this for us as fishers is the Carry Care Advantage plan offered by an insurance company for frontline workers. However, even though it was offered, we were only put on the list or asked as frontline workers at the last minute. So that didn't give a lot of the fisher folks enough time to really look into it, to get involved, and it was a good thing for us to have. When we asked the government for assistance, we were made to feel like if we should be grateful by just being put on the list of essential workers. We need to learn from this pandemic. Need to be more planning in the event of something like this ever happening to affect us again. We have to look at really putting things in place for us and our family from now onward. We need to put more programs and training in place for fishers to make them aware to be able to handle themselves in the event of something like this ever happening again. Also, we need to be putting a saving plan in place as a safety net in case we are ever hit by another pandemic.
Thank you, Sylvia. And next, we're going to share a video from Andy Maldonado, and Andy's from Puerto Rico. Andy was actually the GMA, the Gladden Memorial Award winner back in 2009. So let's hear from Andy now. And if you are just tuning in, you can choose the language in which you wish to listen to on the bottom ribbon of your Zoom. There's a little world sign with the word interpretation, and you can listen in English and Spanish. So over now to Andy.
Buenas tardes. Bueno, mi nombre es Andrés Maldonado, soy pescador acá en Puerto Rico y le voy a comentar algunas cosas de lo que está sucediendo acá con el asunto con el COVID. Puerto Rico entró en cuarentena. Solamente se mantienen abiertos, activos los trabajos esenciales y la pesca está incluida como un trabajo esencial. Pero el problema que nos encontramos los pescadores es que podemos pescar, pero que todos nuestros compradores, los que compran todo el mercado, están cejados. Y ahí tuvimos el dilema, la problemática de qué íbamos a hacer. A mí se me ocurrió, hablando con mi compradora y con mi hijo, de hacer un anuncio para poner en la página que yo tengo, que se llama Pescadores Comerciales y el Ambiente, sobre el mercado que ella tiene, ofreciendo el producto. Al principio se fue un poco difícil, pero luego la gente se empezó a comunicar y empezaron a pedir, a dar las órdenes. Mi compradora, obviamente, ella esperaba a tener suficientes pedidos para un área en específico para luego hacer entrega, entregando a domicilio. Entiendo que otros pescadores, como otros restaurantes y otros servicios que sí podían estar abiertos, también están ofreciendo este mismo tipo de servicio, y es lo único que está en servicio en estos momentos. Yo le aconsejaría a los pescadores en otras partes del Caribe que intenten este sistema, porque da resultados. Las ayudas del gobierno, bueno, han habido las que regularmente han estado ofreciendo, pero del Departamento de Agricultura, que es el que tiene que velar por los pescadores, hasta hoy, hasta el momento, nada. Mi gente, por favor, cuídense, velen por lo suyo, velen por la familia, y espero encontrarnos pronto. Bye.
And thank you, Andy. And next, we're going to hear some short words from Captain Scott Hickman and some of his colleagues over in Texas.
Hello, I'm Captain Mike Jennings, on 2 federally permitted charter boats in Freeport, Texas. With COVID-19 in the spring, we were concerned, because we're in the service industry, whether people were going to spend money or not. And the PPP program helped us out quite a bit. That was kind of the original assistance that we got from the government going into this uncertain year, but it's actually brought about a lot more business. It may be because people made decisions to stay home and work on their recreational activities locally rather than traveling across the country. I'm not real sure. That's just one of the guesses that I have, but it's actually helped us out quite a bit.
We've got some interesting sound bites from...
I'm Captain Abby Webster from Freeport, Texas, and pretty much the same exact thing that Mike Jennings said. Super busy summer.
Hello, my name's Daryl Wiley. I'm a deckhand on a federally permitted charter boat. The COVID situation has actually brought us more busy. We've been busier than ever during the whole COVID situation, and the one thing that we have to do more of is we spend more time cleaning our vessels.
Captain Scott Hickman, Galveston, Texas, on a federally permitted charter boat, and I also got a commercial fishing boat. We were, like Captain Mike said, we were scared to death this was going to kill our businesses. People didn't travel. They stayed at home locally in Texas. We had the busiest summer we've ever had, plus government assistance with the PPP program, and some of these SBA loans helped us, buy new equipment, and we've had a really, really great year. Now, like Daryl said, we were having to be more careful, wash our boats extra good, use extra bleach. Some people wear masks, some people don't. The whole fleet did not have a problem getting COVID. We did have one captain get it. He died 2 weeks ago. It was a terrible thing. But overall, for us here locally, it's been a boom. Lots of people showing up to fish, and we're still busy going into the fall. I've never seen anything like it. So I think with people not traveling abroad, it's helped our domestic fishing businesses. And, I can't say enough that we've been very, very busy. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Captain Scott Hickman. Those are some very interesting perspectives from throughout the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico region. Next, we're going to hopefully invite a fisher from St. Lucia. Danny James has been involved in the fishing industry for the last 21 years. She's a fish vendor, a boat owner, and a member of the Goodwill Cooperative in St. Lucia. And she's also a fierce advocate for fishers' rights. So Danny, if I could have you enable your mic and share with us. Yes, Danny, your mic is unmuted. You can put on your video as well, but please go ahead. And as we wait for Danny, we'll have all the other fishers sort of come online and start enabling their mics and audio in the meantime. But Danny, please go ahead whenever you're ready. Okay, I think we're having some technological problems right now with Danny, so we'll circle back to Danny next. But for now, can all our fisher panelists please enable your mics and your video, and so we can have everyone get started. So we have Don joining us. Don, feel free to start introducing yourself in the meantime while we see what's going on with everyone else.
Okay, my name is Don DeMaria, and I live in Summerlin Key in the Florida Keys. I guess I could talk a little bit about how this has affected us in Florida while waiting for everybody else to get on. As far as catching marine life, the first couple of months of this pandemic, flights weren't flying anywhere, so we were shut down for like 2 months. But then it picked up, and it gets a little bit complicated trying to tease out the effects of COVID-19 and other things on the market. During that time, the tropical fish industry in Hawaii shut down, so we could have possibly picked up some of the business from that too. There's 260-something collectors out of business because of politics, basically. But that had an impact on us. I think we probably picked up some of that. Stone crabs, that's way off this year. It's mostly a local market. So restaurants are closed and whatnot. That would definitely impact that. But I think the biggest impact on that was they raised the size limit this year to 1/8 of an inch. So about 25% of the crabs they had to throw back. And as you go up the Gulf, the crabs tend to be smaller, so they're probably throwing more back. And that'll settle out as the years go by. That's how size limits go. Lobsters is more complicated. The Chinese were buying them, and then prior to the pandemic, the price got up to $22 a pound, $22.50 ex vessel whole. That's pretty incredible. Then before the pandemic, the Chinese pulled out and pulled way back to hardly buying any. Prices down around $5 a pound now, $6. But it's difficult to tell what's really going on because fishermen stopped basically selling to a lot of the local restaurants and local suppliers when the Chinese came in, and now they kind of got hurt with that, and the local fish houses sort of lost their markets because they didn't have any lobster to sell. So now they're trying to get that back. So that messes up the market a bit too. Snapper and grouper, I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of demand for local fresh snapper and grouper in the Keys. There's so little of it being caught anymore. Most of the fish in restaurants is imported. But then again, the fish houses are having trouble selling, fish markets are having trouble selling the restaurants because a lot of them are closed, even the imported fish. So it's difficult to tell exactly what's just market fluctuations and the COVID thing, but certainly lack of tourists down here, restaurants closing down is having a big impact on the fishers.
Thank you. I see
Yeah,
we have a few more
I'm
joining.
saying what Don was talking about.
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
We have a similar thing here, you know, because I wear two hats. You know, we've got the charter fishing boats, and then we do commercial fishing as well. And, you know, we saw, you know, during the lockdown, it was a supply chain issue. And I think everybody kind of had that. It was changing markets. And instead of all the restaurants were shut down, but we still had access to all these IFQ-led fish. I had one young captain that started a social media outreach program, and he went and bought a fish dealer's permit so he could deliver the fresh fish that he was catching to people's homes. And he would put them in little insulated bags, and they would pay him through Venmo, and he would catch his fish and drop them off on people's front porches once they paid him on Venmo. And it's kind of crazy because still today people got to where they like that, and he's still doing it some. So we learned to diversify our chain, our supply chain, on how to get these people fish, because they didn't want to leave their houses, go to fish markets, go to stores, and we learned to work our way around that. So even our big fish houses, instead of shipping directly through middlemen to restaurants, which demand was way down, they found new markets with grocery stores. They had to stop selling whole fish and start selling fillets to markets. So there's been ways to get around some of that, and I can talk later about some of the local political things that we faced with shutting down our charter boats during COVID, and how we were able to work with local policymakers in getting our fleet open back up, that I talked about the other day on the fishers part of the recreational part of GCFI this week. But go ahead, Don.
Oh, I've pretty much finished what I had to say here, other than just, you know, the fishermen are going to have to they're going to have to diversify a little bit and be a little bit more creative in what they do, and not put all their eggs in one basket like they should have learned with the Chinese and lobster trade. That just that completely fell apart. And then the local fish houses that they sold to were kind of left hanging. Guys that supported them all these years with ice and bait and stuff, they just sort of left them hanging and turned and sold to the Chinese when, you know, top dollar came in. And you can't do that. You got to look for the long term, I think. Chinese market was a nice flash in the pan for them, but it's over now, and COVID right on top of it. They really need the local guys to deal with.
You know, and our law people in DC making a lot of this policy on helping our fishermen out. The PPP program worked really good for our fishermen to get through the struggle last spring until we were able to get back open. Now, we had some regional differences. I know that the Keys were closed for quite a long time. We were closed in Galveston for over a month, and which didn't make any sense to us because we were an outdoor activity. I do fully expect, and I think this next part that I'm going to say is going to be helpful to some people, is we expect COVID to get worse. College kids are coming home. Flu seasons are going to be upon us. They're letting people travel more, you know, not just regionally, but from other parts of the country. I think we're going to have a little flare up. You know, who knows if the vaccines are going to work. So going into this next spring, I think we're going to face some similar challenges again. One of the things that we did to get our local government to let us go back and start fishing again for the charter boat fleet was we came out with a really defined safety plan. And we developed a system to where the people had to wear masks when they came down to the dock. When they got on the boat, we had sanitizer stations located. Before they got on the boat, we asked them if they'd come into contact with people that maybe had illnesses, COVID, etc. We also had designated fishing rods for the people that came on the boat. We socially distanced on the boat. All that went into our safety plan. We would bleach the boats heavily before the trips. If we had another group in the afternoon, we'd go through the whole process again with the bleaching process. We carried either mixed water bleach bottles on the boat to spray areas, the surfaces down, and our freshwater wash downs, we added bleach, which a lot of us had already done for years. But we came with a real comprehensive safety plan for our local government and took it to them, and they opened us back up. And we plan on barring another big flare up here of COVID, we're going to go right back with them with the safety plan, say we've been keeping it up, and hopefully they'll let us continue to fish into the springtime. So it's going to be curious to see what this illness does moving into the flu season, because it would only make sense flu season, it's going to come back even stronger. So working with your association or your group, getting together, reaching out to the local government, coming up with good plans to show them that you can be responsibly safe and operating your business could be the difference in being able to work and not work. And it was, we didn't think at first that they would accept it. And once they went through our plan, they liked it and they opened us back up. So this is something to think about moving forward.
I think some of the others might have something to say. I'm sure Cecil and Andy do. Maybe we could hear something from them.
Please.
Well, ours kind of different from what Scott was speaking about. Like we are more export oriented. Our sole and biggest buy is the United States. And once we had lockdown, there was no airlift. And then it depends again on the market in the United States. Once it's closed down, then we are left in the open, in the ocean. But we are able to supply the local market much more than ever. In fact, some people welcome that. They've never eaten more grade 1 yellowfin tuna than during COVID. For me, for one. So the money wasn't there, but we were still, turning things over, making a little and having enough food. It's still not back to where we were because of airlift. There's not much incentive for big catches because you don't want to spend extra money and you can't get it back. It's like the law of diminishing return, right? You spend too much and you're not getting back anything. So we are hoping and praying that once this situation becomes more favorable, particularly in the United States, then we would be able to get back to where we were pre-COVID. I hope and pray that it wouldn't last very long because, small island states, there's not much more that we can do, particularly with the fishermen. When you know how to do one thing and there is no alternative, then you're back against the wall, so to speak. So I'm hoping and praying that things would go back to normal. But in the meantime, we survive. That's what we are, human beings trying to survive. Don?
I think you're going to survive.
Yeah, maybe you could send me some white hog.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say, Andy?
Sí, en español. El problema de nosotros acá en Puerto Rico, principalmente en el área suroeste de la isla donde yo pertenezco, no es solamente con el COVID. Desde 2017 sufrimos 2 huracanes bien fuertes que destrozaron la isla. Todavía estamos en recuperación de los huracanes. En el 2019, en el suroeste de diciembre de 2019, empezaron los temblores muy cerca de mi casa. Acabó la poca recuperación que hubo en el suroeste de los restaurantes, de los hoteles, con los terremotos se volvió hacia atrás. Todavía no, el problema de los sismos, de los temblores, continúa, pero a menos escala o nos estamos acostumbrando. Y ahora viene este asunto del COVID, que nos acabó de dar un jaque mate. Primero en el 2017, los fondos marinos se viraron a GB. Los moluscos en las praderas de hierba murieron. Ahora, luego de 3 años, está recuperando. Pero tenemos el problema que con el COVID se cejó todo el comercio, está abriendo poco a poco. Muchos pescadores se fueron, muchos pescadores simplemente dejaron de pescar. Los que nos quedamos, los que no tenemos un plan B, como de irnos a otra parte o tenemos otro sistema de trabajo, pues tenemos que estar sobreviviendo. Los pescadores que están compitiendo, están matándose unos con otros para poder vender la poca pesca que se está recogiendo. Y nos pone en desventaja a todos. Los precios bajan, el poder vender se hace mucho más difícil. Pero estamos viviendo, estamos sobreviviendo, estamos luchando. Aquí estamos todos montados en el mismo vehículo. Y nada, esperando con calma que las cosas se vayan enderezando. No sé cuánto tiempo se tome, pero ahí estamos, cuidándonos, cuidando a la familia y nada, esperando tranquilo a que esto mejore.
I'll respond to a little bit of that. One of the things I get from a lot of people that are fishing here locally, everybody's so thirsty to get back on airplanes and travel to places like Puerto Rico, the Bahamas. They're so thirsty to get back on airplanes. Mm-hmm. And, you lock down, this big population over here for 8-9 months, and you can only make so many snapper drum trips to Galveston. They want to go see clear blue water and eat food in other places. I think it's going to be a giant torrent of travel once they get some type of vaccine and things get to be more normalized again. I think y'all are going to have a mad rush. So the thing would be to try to be prepared once that happens. And the one thing that concerns me, and this is from a scientific standpoint, a fisheries management standpoint, we saw a tremendous amount of fishing effort this year because everybody was fishing here. They weren't going anywhere else to fish. That's why we got so busy. I think that we've over-harvested some of our species, and knowing how we're going to react to that with all this new fishing effort that we have here at home, y'all's fisheries are going to be rested somewhat, not as much fishing effort. You're going to have all these people wanting to come fish and being careful not to over-harvest in some of these other areas when you get this big mass of people starting to travel again. I think I've seen where a lot of people are starting to go to Cabo again. Some areas are starting to open up. And people are just thirsty to get out of the United States and go somewhere else, have a margarita, white sand beach, clear water. And I think once it opens up, y'all are going to just see a huge resurgence in your economies and tourism. And people are so thirsty to go travel now. They just feel like caged animals. So one of the things I wanted to ask Sylvia what was going on there and what she sees for the future in her area, if I can get her to speak. Sylvia.
Hi, good day to all. Yes, for us here in Barbados, we've been having some challenges, but things are picking up a little bit. But all the as well, limited hours to work, limited movement, and our longline fishers with the yellowfin tuna was grounded because of the export issues. So it's been a challenge for us. We had to find really new ways to work. Actually, go door to door selling so that our fish stock, that our fish catches wouldn't spoil. And it meant that everybody had to chip in and do that to get their fish sold. Money was limited, not a lot floating around. People couldn't get in the banks to access their accounts and do certain things. So it was taxing for the first couple of weeks of the lockdown. But things are starting to taper off a little bit. A lot of the hotels are now trying to get back on stream. The opening limitedly at this time, and we're still trying to be ready up to the minimum. So not sure what went wrong. I'm not sure what went wrong there. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it. But other than that, we're trying to get back on stream, but we're taking very much great precautions because we are trying to keep the COVID-19 cases as minimal as possible. Because anytime that we get a community spread in Barbados, it's all over for us.
Has any of the folks from outside of the United States, have they gone to their leaders and talked about, you know, what their safety plans look like when this big surge of tourism comes, about how to keep the local populations safe from the spread when people start getting on these airplanes again?
Well, here in Barbados, we haven't done it as a fisher-folk community, but we've been adhering to the protocols that were put in place. But there are other communities that have been on an ILO-wide process. They've been following all the protocols, everything that you're supposed to do when you come into the island, the quarantine process. They've been following all of that. That's why we have been able to limit our cases to a very minimum amount, and all of our cases are cases that are imported. It would just mean the others that aren't imported with people coming in contact with people that came in from overseas, but during the form of working for them. So, but we have put plans in place here that if you're working for one of those hotels or entities and you know that you have people that come into the island and they're being quarantined, that you're supposed to be quarantined along with them as well. So it's to limit the spread to your community or your family.
I think we could hear something from Danny. I see she's on here too, and she was supposed to talk earlier. Maybe you've got some thoughts on what's going on. I think you're gonna have to unmute your microphone.
Any on?
Go ahead, Danny. Your mic is unmuted, so you can go ahead. Oh, we're not hearing you. Okay, we will try to figure that out, but it says that your mic is connected. In the meantime, I'm just going to read, as we wait for Danny to connect, I'm just going to read a comment from the chat just as we wait for Danny. Bermuda had a fairly short lockdown and we were proactive. This is a comment from Joanna Pitt. Bermuda had a fairly short lockdown and we were proactive in accommodating commercial fishing. COVID is now under control locally. However, tourism is vastly reducing the market for locally caught fish. It has also resulted in many people being out of work, and many of them are now fishing to supplement their diet and in some cases their income by selling fish illegally. This further reduces the market for the licensed commercial fishes. And Joanna wanted to know if this was happening elsewhere or were there any experience to share or suggestions for mitigation. So I don't know if Danny's back. Danny, do you want to try speaking again? Okay, unfortunately, we don't seem to be hearing Danny. So I think we'll try to go to another fisher and we'll try to see if we can sort Danny out. In the meantime, I don't know if you all were finished on that point, but did you want to perhaps respond to the comment from Joanna Pitt in the meantime?
Hi, yes. to Joanna's comment, yes, here in Barbados, because of the lockdown and a lot of people being off work, then you had an influx of persons getting into the areas where work was available, and the fishing industry was one of it. So it was a case of you had people to try to gain access to work, selling fish or processing or anything like that, and that's where you get the influx. If that's what you mean by selling fish illegally, because here in Barbados we have to be registered on a yearly basis. We have to renew our registration in order to operate in the fishing industry. And you had, for us, we had an influx of people coming in operating without necessarily certification to operate as we would normally do on a yearly basis. So other than that, it wasn't so much like illegal thing for us. But yes, it was illegal, but you're not on that large scale. It was just people trying to make an honest dollar to feed their families in that setting.
As far as illegal fishing in the Keys, well, there's always something illegal going on in the Keys, especially with fishing. But it does seem, since this COVID thing, there's been a lot more cases of people catching it, undersized fish, out of season fish, spearing lobsters, and I don't know if it's COVID related or what, but the newspapers have just been full of reports of cases in the last couple of months. So yeah, it's going on here quite a bit. Always does.
Yeah, that was one of the things this spring that was really shocking. Not so much here, but I call him my COVID brother because we both got COVID at Mardi Gras, New Orleans at a Gulf Council meeting. A guy named Ed Walker, who's a commercial and charter boat captain. And he said it was the worst poaching incident they'd ever seen in Florida history. That all of the DNR officers were so busy keeping people apart on the islands, having parties off the west coast of Florida, that they weren't really checking fishermen, that everybody was stocking up their freezers on groupers, and the seasons were closed, and nobody was abiding by the bag limits. And he said it was just a mass harvest, over harvest of groupers on that west coast of Florida. He'd never seen anything like it. So there was I think everywhere you really talk to people, just because of this whole COVID thing, it changed law enforcement's perspective on what they were being told to do, and it opened up for a lot of illegal fishing. It was amazing how many on the recreational side were illegal fishing in different areas like the west coast of Florida.
Acá en Puerto Rico también actualmente está el problema, porque se nos permite a los pescadores comerciales con la licencia de pesca activa seguir trabajando. La pesca recreativa no. Entonces los pescadores recreativos solicitaban licencias de pesca comercial para poder seguir pescando. Aquí hay muy poco control sobre eso. Lo único que está exigiendo el Departamento de Recursos Naturales en Puerto Rico es que cuando una persona solicite esta licencia de pesca, tenga que tener evidencia con las planillas de ingresos de que fue pescador antes de solicitarla. O sea, que una persona que no pueda verificar que era un pescador comercial antes de solicitar una licencia nueva, no se le está dando.
I see that we have Danny back again. Danny, do you want to try speaking now?
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
So Danny, do you want to go ahead and give us your sort of comments from your brief presentation from earlier, and then you can possibly catch up on some of the responses you might have wanted to make.
Thank you. I am Danny James, boat owner and fisher woman from St. Lucia. I have been involved in fishing for the past 21 years, and it's my only means of livelihood. I am a boat owner and vendor at the local fish market. These activities has helped me raise and educate my children, build a home, grew a small fishing industry, and upon leaving school, my sons also joined in the fishing business and are now employed in the business, helping me manage and also serving as captains and helpers of the boat. Over the years, the sector has given me opportunities such as serving as president of my own cooperative, Goodwill Fishermen's Cooperative, and also as president of Fisherfolk St. Lucia. I was also awarded the privilege of attending a meeting in Rome, Italy, as a Fisherfolk representative at the World Forum of Fisherfolk People in June of 2019. The impact of COVID-19 on women in fisheries in St. Lucia, and especially myself directly, has affected me tremendously. As a COVID measure, all fish markets were closed, and basically my small business was shut, and that of others in the industry. It renders my children and a lot of others unemployed. My income was reduced approximately by nearly 60 to 70%. We are now trying to find alternative and innovative ways to continue surviving in these unpredictable times. My sons have now started planting sea moss, where now we find in St. Lucia there is a great demand for sea moss, and most fishers are getting involved in sea moss farming. We also had to start selling fish directly within our community, where we would have cleaned, sliced, and parcel fish in 2 to 3 kilo bags and sell within the community to customers. This was also very helpful. Most times, if it's a large catch, we would hire a vehicle and go through the rural communities, also selling fish. During the COVID times, boats were not allowed to go out, and most of the restaurants were closed. So most times I would sell fish, or I would just go into preparing fish from home, like fish and fries, fish burgers, just ways and means to earn an income. We the fishers never got any incentives from government. In March, the government had said it would offer a stimulus package to every sector. We are still waiting for this to happen. Fishers received nothing from government since we have always been marginalized. We have primitive, we still practice primitive we still have primitive practices. And when we ask the government for help, most times it's very hard in coming. My cooperative that is in has also helped fishers by gifting all its members of $500. And I must say, as far as I know, it only happened with my cooperative. And I am not sure whether it happened with other cooperatives. But currently in St. Lucia, we are facing a very serious issue of human trafficking across borders of Martinique and St. Lucia. The government has said that it is the influx of people coming from Martinique that has swelled the numbers of COVID persons entering our country, because the COVID patients are now rising. So fishers are to be blamed for this practice also. So due to this, the government saw it fitting to suspend all fishers' licenses without consultation. We only had to hear it over the media. Fishers reacted to this draconian measure by staging a protest and demanding of government to meet with fishers. Fishers managed to get an audience with government representative. They had a moment to put forth their grievances and demand reversal of measure. After lengthy discussions and reasoning, the ban was lifted only today, and happily the fishers returned to sea this morning. It is not an easy 8 months for fishers. The tourism sector, which will be our biggest consumer of fresh fish, was greatly affected, and in turn, we have been affected tremendously. We have had to struggle to make a livelihood during COVID and then fight against the imposed ban on us by government. We are marginalized and disrespected by our government, but we as fishers, we still have a positive outlook to COVID. The COVID is here to stay for a while. We still think positive. We still look forward to better and supporting our cooperative. So for my part, as a fisherwoman, it has affected me tremendously. But I am also trying to find other ways where I could help my family, help other fisher women, find alternative ways. But in St. Lucia, we are not advanced where we are able to engage or get involved in smoke fishing or where we have a large market where we now could find alternative measures. So all we await on with COVID is better will come, and I think, and I am optimistic going into the new year. How hard it is, but I think we try our best to survive in St. Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. The question for you and some of the other panelists, are there any out-of-the-box type solutions, recommendations to ways to move forward to get out of some of these hardships currently? Or does any of the other folks on here have any ideas on how, as a collective group, we can fix some of these issues? And you can start, Danny.
I think in St. Lucia, our biggest threat now is the coming in of persons through our borders illegally from Martinique. And since Martinique has a high number of COVID persons in Martinique, Martinique has now closed down the country. So what we now are having problems with as fishers is we trying to work with the Marine Department, or even today, I am now trying to find ways and means to work with the Marine Department where we could put things in place, where we could help curb the practice. But we as fishers now are faced with the challenge where government are threatening to suspend our license if that practice continues. We are not saying it's not happening, but what we are saying, do not blame the fishers when you can have no proof. Fishers are the one engaging in the activity of bringing in persons illegally through the borders into St. Lucia. What we are saying, try to put measures with the Marine Department in place where fishers now are trying to ask for whereas we would go out to sea at 1 in the morning, we are now given a time of 4 in the morning to 7 in the evening. Most fishers would commence going to sea at 1, especially fishers going to the fads. But now all fishers have to adhere to the protocol where we now have to leave at 4 in the morning. Most of us, we had already done pots to cast pots at sea, and we still have to adhere to the protocols. So what you find, we are being limited because we are given the times to go out, the times to cook, come in. We do not have a lucrative market where when we come in, we could sell at a market where government now could help us in buying our fish. We have to find ways and means to sell the fish. So for example, if I come in at 6 with a catch, the market is closed, the town is closed. I now have to think of ways to ice that fish where we are now under a curfew for 9. So I no longer can get a hired vehicle or get a vehicle to go to the rural communities to sell that catch. I now have to find ice and ways to ice the fish for tomorrow morning. So we in St. Lucia, I think, are being faced with so much compared to other countries who have markets available that could buy the fish and help them. But we have no markets available. We have a time curfew where we have to be in. The fishers have a curfew to come into port. So all these things now, as I am speaking, I am trying to work with the Marine Department, the Department of Fisheries, the government, my cooperative, where we now could put measures in place that would work with the fishers, support the Marine Department in doing that, support the Fisheries Department. But they themselves are asking so much of us, where we are the ones now have to call the lighthouse to give the records of fishers going in and the records of fishers when they come back in. We now have to be the ones policing the borders also with the Marine Department, where we have been tasked with the job of, if we see the illegal activity, where we now have to try to alert the Marine Department of the practice reporting the vessel. So we now are at risk of being threatened, because imagine I, as a fisher, see an illegal vessel at sea engaging in illegal practice. That fisher is aware, or that vessel is aware, my vessel was the one that saw it at sea. So when I come in to report that vessel out at sea to the Marine Department, I could be putting my children at risk. I could be putting my livelihood and even my vessel at risk. So we now, the fishers, have so much to deal with in St. Lucia, where we do not have all the answers, but we're trying to work with the cooperative, with the Marine Department, with fisheries, with the government, so we now could save our livelihood and continue going to sea. Whereas government has already told us, if the practice continues, they will be closing down the fishing sector in St. Lucia.
Anybody else? That was very enlightening, and sounds like at least you're getting a handle on some of the illegal fishing, even though there's some viable threats. Anybody else like to talk about ways forward or solutions that they can think about that can help the group as a collective whole?
Scott, I was just, are you hearing me, Scott?
Yes.
I just want to zero in onto a couple of points that the lady from St. Lucia made. One, she mentioned that the government threatened to close down the fishing sector, but that doesn't sound right. I mean, how can you close down a fishing sector that provides food for your local consumption, and that would lead to a lot of employment. Secondly, does St. Lucia export fish? Do they have an export market? And thirdly, what I would encourage strongly in my presentation, like I said, and maybe she didn't hear it, that we should endeavor to start building strong cooperatives. We have to lobby, right? We have to lobby the policymakers, make them understand that this thing is as important as any other industry. And they have to change the perspective of the fishing industry and the people who ply the trade. They have the old concept that fishermen are people who go out, get drunk, don't care anything in life. These things have to change. If you change the perception, then you start changing policies. You agitate and you lobby to change policies. And by doing that, you'd have to have strong organizations. I always point to that. You have to be able to bargain from a platform of strength. You can't do it individually. The only how you can change that, and she mentioned that they had a protest, but still, you have to lobby and you have to get to the people who can change the policy, i.e., ministers, representatives, cabinet ministers, what have you. But I don't understand why the fisheries sector or the person who is responsible for fisheries in St. Lucia would make that comment to shut down the industry. I mean, this thing is, I just cannot understand that. I wish that she would explain a little more about that, shutting down the industry.
We do not export fish, and the only market we had was a market that was donated by the Japanese government. And they built us 3 facilities in 3 fishing communities, one in Cashews, one in Choiseul, and one in Vieux Fort. The largest facility is at my port in Vieux Fort, where it was donated to the fishers of St. Lucia, fully equipped, and it was placed in trust with the government of St. Lucia. In the present administration coming in, they immediately privatized it to an individual. And in privatizing that, they never allowed us a say, even if the 19 cooperatives under the Fisherfolk umbrella, the National Fisherfolk umbrella, advocated and wanted to advocate for us. Since they had already taken the decision to privatize it to that particular individual, they never allowed us a voice. what happened is in the government making the decision, the Prime Minister, the Commander of Marines, and the Chief Medical Doctor took that decision of Thursday last week, where they would have they decided they would just suspend the licenses of fishers throughout St. Lucia. They never contacted the Fisherfolk, our national Fisherfolk organization. They never contacted any single cooperative. They never contacted the permanent secretary, not even to relate a message to us. So every fisher had the privilege of seeing it over the news media, having it over the radios. So upon myself as a woman who depends solely on that in that sector, I called my president and asked him what were we to do. So he now tasked me with the job of calling other fishers, where we called them emergency meeting the Sunday. In calling the emergency meeting, since we knew cabinet was meeting the Monday morning, myself and 5 other fishers from my cooperative, we went up to the cabinet office and we stood outside. So in the Prime Minister going in, we introduced ourselves, and when he heard we were fishers, he stopped. And then I told him, the approach, we do not like it, we feel disrespected, and we would like to engage him to a meeting where we could discuss it. And we feel so disrespected. They're now taking a decision with no representative of fisher folk or any cooperative. And the only way the fishers could have seen that information was via the news media. The Prime Minister, since he was going into cabinet, he asked us whether we wanted to have a meeting with him Monday. That was Monday this week. So I related the information to fisher folk, where fisher folk now got representatives together, and we now sat with the government on Tuesday at a meeting with fisher folk. But the most baffling thing to me as the fisherwoman, the decision was taken with the Prime Minister, the Commander of Marines, and the Chief Medical Doctor in St. Lucia. But arriving at that meeting, it was so sad to see the Minister of Education, the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Social Security, permanent secretaries, the Commissioner of Police, and so many other persons at that table the Tuesday. But these same persons were not able to put in a word on behalf of fishers the Thursday and the Friday when that suspension was agreed upon, and it was even taken into law, it was even made into law the Friday. So the Attorney General walked into that meeting the Tuesday, and the Attorney General wants us to accept it is just not an order given by the Prime Minister. It was drafted into law come Friday morning. So we're now putting it to the Attorney General. How did a decision that was taken Tuesday be drafted into law on Friday, and it has already been acted into law, where you now cannot even reverse it? And you're asking us to be patient. Even if you have to reverse it, you still have to go back to the drawing board to undo that piece of law. So what you find going to that meeting on Thursday at 8, we had to leave there at 3. The Minister of Agriculture in St. Lucia, Mr. Ezekiel Joseph, was so disrespectful to us and letting us know as fishers, we were not in no position to ask of him a day to go back to sea. So we now, the fisher, had to take a stand and let the minister know we did not come asking to go back to sea. We come to demand going back to sea on Wednesday, and whether they allow us to go back to sea or not, we the fishers collectively will take a stand and go back to sea on Wednesday. So then the Attorney General called us on the side.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Is that a result of COVID, or a result of the illegal activities suspected? What you're saying is that
yes,
that they stopped you, they put a ban on you.
Because of COVID.
Is that a result, an impact of COVID, or is it a result that they have information that fishers might be alleged to be involved in trafficking, human trafficking? You know, yes. I'm getting mixed up.
Yes, what the government is saying, they have reasons to suspect fishers are engaged in the illegal transportation of persons from Martinique into St. Lucia. That is
okay,
why
that is what I was trying to. So it is not, your ban is not a result of the effect of COVID-19.
No.
Okay, fine. Good. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Danny. We just, Prescott Smith from the Bahamas, the island of Andros, would like to make some comments on this topic. If you'll unmute, Captain Prescott. You there, Prescott?
By the way, Scott, are we you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Are we what we are under now? Question and answers or just comments?
Questions and answers.
Okay.
So we're basically on what are the local solutions beyond I think we're going to move to past innovative and creative solutions. The next would be what are the local solutions that are beyond assistance? What are the local solutions that are beyond assistance?
Mira, en el caso de Puerto Rico, estamos en unos picos. En estos momentos estamos en un pico del COVID bastante alto. Ya se ha demostrado que cada vez que hay un fin de semana largo, el Día de los Padres, un ejemplo, que la gente se olvida un poco del problema que estamos pasando, salen a la calle, 2 semanas después el pico sube, se descontrola y ahora estamos pasando un pico. O sea, que cada vez que tenemos una idea para implantar un mecanismo para lidiar con el COVID, surge un pico y volvemos hacia atrás. O sea, 1 mes, 2 meses en los que las cosas intentan volver a bajar un poco, pero estamos en esa. Suben los picos, bajan los picos y no tenemos tiempo ni siquiera para coordinar una manera de cómo salir adelante. No se puede, la gente no entiende.
Okay, Scott, may I come in, Scott? Scott?
Yes.
We're talking about the local response in individual islands and territories. I always say that there would come a time, and it's happening now, when we have to become, we as small island states, we have to become less dependent on outside, less dependent on handouts, so to speak. We have resources that we can develop and that would help in situations existing like what exists now. For one, and I always advocate, we have to pool together. People have to get together. Gone are the days when you have to sit down and wait. We have to pool together and help one another, because it could very well mean it could happen again. So, in other words, we have to be self-reliant. We have to be able to stand on our own 2 feet most of the time. Okay? And if I was, I was listening to that lady there attentively, and I get the feeling that other islands, Grenada is probably more fortunate than a lot of them, because our fisheries probably is a lot more developed than theirs. We have a big export market, the kind of fish we catch. But I'm getting the feeling that they are not knit together like what we're trying to build here. And I'm saying this to say that right about now, we are trying to get fishermen registered into the National Insurance Scheme. This is something unheard of. This is something new. We are trying to introduce them to that. So there would come a time when, like now, if they were paying into the system, they would be enjoying something. Because the fishing sector did not receive any part of the stimulus package purely because they were not registered. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Purely. They were not paying into the scheme, so they could not have received a dime. Now we are registering them, and the cooperative, and I always say again, cooperatives, organizations, the cooperative is helping to pay some of that contributions. If we do that, in a lot of the other islands, we might just be able to touch the fringes of what is happening. But at least it's a start. We can't depend on Scott Hickman or Don Di Maria or GCFI to send money to our fishermen here. That's a no-no, right? We have to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, create innovative ways and means. Then and only then we would start doing things to help ourselves. You understand what I'm saying, Scott?
I do, and that's a good strategy.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you're making sense. And from Danny's standpoint, I think that getting the cooperative presidents to collectively come up with a strategy to reach out and lobby those ministers to and educate them how important the fishing sector is, and to create things like what you're talking about, these solutions, Cecil. And I think that that's very enlightening, and that is some very, very good information for her and others on your call. That's very good.
If she wants to, when all this is over, if she wants to send me a ticket and hotel accommodation, I can come and help her.
Hi, let me see where the
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Prescott.
Hi. How you doing? Prescott here from the Bahamas. What I would like to see a more regional cooperation among us all, because I don't see separation when it comes to our fisheries, like so many people see these boundaries, because a lot of these, whether it's pelagic species, whether it's tuna in Grenada, they're also swimming from the Bahamas, from one country to the next. So I want to share with you here our isolation, our lack of regional cooperation will serve to our detriment in the region. I remember leaving the Bahamas and training guides in Tortola because I saw that that's an approach where we can also get a sustainable approach to using our resources. And I tell you, being president of the Fly Fishing Guides Association in the Bahamas, president of the sports fishing region, is plagued with a conservation model that it's an uphill climb in terms of empowering ordinary citizens. And so I'm going to use an example to share with you that you can see what we're facing in the Bahamas should be a concern for you, realize it or not. When it comes to the mangrove nursery system, there is no country in the Caribbean or the Western world that have the amount of nursery system that the Bahamas have. I don't see that nursery system as belonging to the Bahamas alone. I see it as whether you are from St. Lucia or whether you are from Grenada, whether you are from Jamaica, these ecosystems all interact with each other. So in the Bahamas, you have the largest flats in the world, not just in the Caribbean, the largest concentration of reef system, blue holes, but the ecosystem in other Caribbean countries also support this ecosystem on the Gulf area. And so what I found was, as we were fighting to say, look, this is how we can empower our local fishermen to be truly owners and stakeholders, it was met with greatest resistance from the establishment who have control in the Bahamas, not for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And I see that that's a pattern throughout the Caribbean region. And so when you look at, and I'm happy to hear Captain Scott and my Caribbean brother here who does tuna and is a Grenada. But for our situation here, when COVID hit us from January, February, when we hit to the month of March, everything was shut down in the Bahamas. So there was no situation where you can go there and there was no one coming in. All flights stopped. All flights stopped to inter-island travel. And that's the way it's been. So I'm hearing the government is just opening up the economy on November the 1st. But, I've heard that about half a dozen times already. And then they had to reverse course because the numbers were just climbing in New Providence and a few islands. But I want to share with you, I heard the lady who was faced with that situation, and we are faced with a lot of politicians talk in the Bahamas, but there's no real support. And I want you to the Caribbean contributes many tens of billions of dollars to these global companies, whether they be Shimano, whether they be Daiwa, Penn Reels, Hatteras Yachts. And so if we were to work together regionally, we can get the support, fishermen, not handouts, because you deserve the support. We are putting billions of dollars into these economies. There's over 50,000 in the Bahamian waters at the end of the day. And what they found is that more fish is extracted from our waters through recreational fishing than the commercial fishing industry. And yet, for the last 50 years, has never been recorded because under tourism, it was completely overlooked. And so we must get together and truly have a greater voice, recognizing the issues that each other face. Because as we fight to protect this nursery system, when those tuna swim from Grenada or St. Lucia, and they show up in the Bahamas, and then all of a sudden, the nursery system that's providing all of the porcupine fish, puffer fish, all the other bait fish, it's not there anymore. And so that's my approach to this situation. These things are connected. We cannot look, and I can tell you, I'm speaking as a Bahamian, I don't see no separation with my brothers and sisters in the region. Many of us are naive to think that, but we all came from through the colonial era. You look through the Caribbean, and maybe a brother or sister ended up in Haiti, Grenada, or the Bahamas, but we are all linked up. We have more in common than the opposite. And I don't think we are capitalizing where Shimano, Daiwa, these companies that are in hundreds of billions of dollars collectively from the Caribbean region, we can collectively get to reinvest so that we can have a greater output by protecting our nursery systems. The Bahamas is an example of hundreds of blocks creeks. If we restore these things, we'll have more marine life. We put in, the knowledge I heard my brother here, who I'm looking at from Grenada, there's so much we can learn from each other because it's the kind of fishing that you do there with all your deep oceans. It is 99.9% of Bahamians have no clue. We grew up culturally fishing in the shallow water, catch your grouper from the reef, your snapper. And I'm fascinated when I hear you talk about the tuna and how to manage it properly. There's so much we can learn from each other. And I think we can get the support from these global companies who recognize that, by doing this, we're protecting something that continue to make their companies successful. Because I'm going to end with this. We put tens of billions of dollars into the US economy. But at the end of the day, the Caribbean is just viewed as a place to go and relax and have peanut coladas and so forth. And yet these companies, as Captain Scott will tell you, they invest in all these other areas. They're not investing with us because we're not together. And so those are the things I want to share with you, what's going on in the Bahamas. We are fighting right now. And this is where I'm going to end, so you know. Andros is the largest island in the Bahamas. We have 700 islands, 2,300 keys. Andros is the island with the largest concentration of mangroves in the entire region, the largest freshwater supply. And we are fighting a proposed mining project that wants to mine a 5,000 acre area in the main freshwater well fields on this island. Now, that will have a devastating impact on the entire region. But you might not know because you don't see the declining fish stocks. But if we network together the way we ought to, it means that you will know what is going on. And you might say, well, Prescott, what is happening in Grenada? What can you do to help us there? What is happening in St. Lucia? And so what happened to our sister here who was shut down? If they know that we are forced together, we can have the support system in place to help each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Prescott. And while we get ready to wrap this up, I know I want to say one quick thing, and Don wants to say a few things. Building upon what Captain Prescott just said, I think is very important to take away from this call. You know, the Gladding Conservation Committee is a new entity, and it can be a very powerful voice throughout the Gulf and Caribbean area as we move forward. It's been a challenging year because of COVID and all of our challenges and things trying to deal with our own lives and this horrible virus and how it's affected our businesses. But I think expanding upon this Gladding Conservation Committee and bringing more fishers into this, we can have that voice that everyone here is talking about and be able to, as a collective group, make really big change, whether it's political change, whether it's change for better conservation, better science. I think that's the goal of this committee. And everybody that called in today, we really appreciate it. I think we're going to do really great things. And I thank GCFI for helping us along and develop the Gladding Conservation Committee. Don, would you like to say a few things? We wrap up.
Well, like I typed in here, I think the main challenge for us is going to be just riding this virus out until it burns itself out. And it's going to be hard. It's nothing like we've ever faced before. We faced hurricanes and shortage of fish and all kinds of other hardships. And fisher folk are very resilient, but this is something different. It's going to take a lot more thought, working together, as Scott said, and Prescott. It's a learning experience for all of us, but I think we're going to get through it. Thanks a lot for everybody.
Thank you. I think we cut. I'm told to wrap it up, but I know Sylvia was trying to make a comment before Prescott. Sylvia, can you do something in a quick 20 or 30 seconds, please?
No, tranquila, no se preocupe. Buenas tardes, ¿cómo está? Mire, esa factura, yo como era la primera que estaba haciendo electrónica, pues resulta que...
On a different scale, you're going to pay as a cooperative. We're going to be paid as self-employed persons. And at this time of COVID, is nothing for us because as a self-employed person, we cannot claim unemployment. So you're going to pay in a cooperative form or business form, but we are paying it as self-employed people. So it's just a security for us when we get to a pensionable age that we have something that we can rely on. But as the others say, COVID is here on us, is here to stay, and we in the Caribbean have to come together and really band together and help each other because no fisher in the Caribbean our fishing sector in the Caribbean is different from each other. There are going to be issues, there are going to be problems that is going to come out, that is going to affect each and every one of us at some point, and we have to use our resources, collaborate our knowledge so that we can come out on top, because as it is, we are looked down upon as fishers in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Don, I think we're pretty good here. I think we can wrap it up. I look forward to seeing everybody, and hopefully all that you can make it in a COVID-free environment next year in beautiful Florida. And God bless. My prayers go out to all of you, and let's get through this, and let's keep this committee going stronger and getting bigger. I really have great expectations to be able to do this. Thank you all so much.
So thank you again to all our panelists today, our Gladden Award winners, as well as some other fishers that joined us today. This was truly a very lively discussion. There were some comments from the audience that we might not have addressed. There were some comments from Mexico and Belize where they were sharing about some other illegal activities and sharing their experience. So thank you to our audience for sharing your perspectives as well. We'll try to keep this forum ongoing and seeing that how you can connect with everyone via social media and then also through our website. So we don't want these discussions to end now. We want to continue to use collective experience and learn from each other. And that's our goal for this. So we thank our panelists today for sharing their experience, and we thank all our audience for their participation. That's our session for today. Later on coming up, we do have a social for all registered participants to come get to know the GCFI Board of Directors better. And then we'll be back here tomorrow for our final day, where we'll continue with our recreational fisheries. So that's it from us. Thank you again to all our panelists and our audience, and as well as our moderators. So thank you again to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.